Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to another edition of Preston Jacobs Talks About Ice and Fire late at night in the city of Washington, D.C. Welcome everyone. It seems that it's going to be J-Lord's night tonight. We're going to be talking about a lot of things J-Lord wants to talk about. Um, but let's start talking about Nettles. And, naturally, I'm bringing up Nettles because one, House of the Dragon is coming up in just a couple of weeks. And there's just been a lot of talk about Nettles perhaps not being in the show and this being quite a mistake. And I do agree. It's a massive mistake not to have Nettles in the show. She's a fascinating, interesting character. I do not want her plot line taken over by Rhaena. I just don't think it makes sense. But yeah, let's talk about Nettles for a second. Who is she really? So in the text originally, it says that Nettles is some sort of dragon seed. And it's hard to know if that's actually true. She's very dark skinned. One would think if she were half Valyrian or half Targaryen that she'd be a little lighter than that. And if she had that Valyrian blood, why is she using the sheep technique, the sheep and goat technique to get the dragon to eat, become drowsy or whatever, and allow her to get on the back if she has the blood? And that's a consistent thing. She doesn't do it just to bond with it. She does it all the way until the end, all the way her final ride. We hear about her slaughtering an animal before she gets on. Like it's a regular thing that she does. The dragon doesn't eventually get used to her. She does it consistently, as far as we can tell. That she never bonds with the dragon. So she's an interesting character. So it seems to be that whether she has Valyrian blood or not, it seems that she doesn't have any ability to kind of telepathically bond to a dragon like other characters. Now, in the story, there's certainly Nettles is, and this is the thing is from what we hear, according to the story, she's born of a dockside whore on Driftmark, and she lives most of her life as fairly homeless girl, traveling between Hull and Driftmark, and then she shows up for the dragon seed situation. She's not good looking. She apparently has a cut nose as a punishment for theft, things like this. And so when the Dance of the Dragons near the end, we get these rumors that there was an affair, a relationship between Daemon and Nettles. And the affair, we hear about it from Mushroom's perspective, and we hear about it from Maester Norrin's perspective. Maester Norrin is a very suspicious character. If you're one to believe in Maester conspiracies, Maester Norrin would definitely be one of these characters. That's part of it. You sort of think of the probably the two most suspicious Maesters in Fire and Blood are the Storm's End Maester and Maester Norrin at Maidenpool. He all of a sudden has this letter that says that Rhaenyra wants to execute Nettles for no good reason, and it drives Daemon crazy and causes him. Nettles goes off, they lose a dragon, and Daemon goes off to fight Aemond. So our sources on this affair are not great. They are from Mushroom and Maester Norrin. And I think a lot of readers did read Fire and Blood and say, this affair between Daemon and Nettles just doesn't sound right. Why is it being pushed so far? It seems very on the nose. And so I think a bit wrongly, fans just kind of said, well, why is Daemon acting the way he's acting? Because there are stories of them sharing baths together and washing each other. And so I think some fans kind of said, what is a situation where it's okay for two people to be taking baths together and scrubbing each other? And the only answer is, well, people that are in the same family. Like a father could wash his daughter or something, and it's no big deal. Or like the closeness, like they're so close together and they ate all their meals together. What is the other excuse for people spending that much time together, if not romance? Well, familiar, relationships. You spend a lot of time together. It's after all, the reason that Jaime and Cersei are able to maintain their secret affair is because everyone just assumes they're spending a lot of time together because they're brother and sister. And so the theory, and it's quite, it's a quite popular theory that Nettles is secretly the child of Daemon. Now there's a few problems with Nettles being the child of Daemon. One, like, she's described as being dark, not, half black, half white. She's also the wrong age. She's said to be 17 in the text, or not more than 17 in the text, which means she would be born in the year 113, conceived, or maybe 114, conceived in 112, 113. Daemon is clearly in the Stepstones, fighting the war at that point. He is not on Driftmark. He is not in King's Landing. He's in the Stepstones. Now, some people are like, well, maybe he took a trip. And it's like, well, why would a guy take a trip to Driftmark of all places to have sex with a dockside whore? So when there's plenty of camp followers, people in the Stepstones, or whoever that he could spend some time with. So you kind of look at that and go, no, like from what we're told in the text, like she just can't be Daemon's child. Now people could say, well, maybe just, they got the age wrong. Maybe she's a bit older. Maybe she's a bit younger. Maybe she's a bit older, and so it was Daemon's time in King's Landing in 111, or maybe she's a bit younger, and it's Daemon's time when he's married to Laena on Driftmark. And the thing is when you're going and saying like, oh, the text is wrong, which, yes, of course, it's Maester testimony. Like, of course the thing's wrong. But when you choose that specific thing to fit your narrative rather than the other things that you could throw away to fit the narrative, I don't understand why that choice is made. Like, if you're upset about the story of him taking baths with Nettles, you can just say that fact is wrong, considering it's coming from Maester Norrin. Like, Maester Norrin is the least trustworthy source. Like, here, like, you could just be like, no, of course they didn't take baths together. That's stupid. The Maester is lying. He's the one that presented the whole letter from Rhaenyra that completely destroyed the Blacks at the end of the war. Why would I believe anything coming from Maester Norrin? But in order to deal with the fact that, like, they took baths together, I'm shifting over, like, I have to shift another part of the text of her being a different age. Not to mention the fact that it's weird that they're taking baths if she's 17 or 18 years old. You don't take baths with people like that old. You take baths with people that are like 4, so it's, and so I find the theory a bit weird because it's like, it's throwing away pieces of the text without proper justification for throwing away pieces of the text. It's one thing to say, well, that's a Mushroom story, because you immediately say Mushroom is looking to make an interesting, salacious tale, so he's not to be believed, and therefore we can throw away that piece of data, or the datum, but it's another just to like pick a random piece. That sounds like it's from Munkin about her age and throw that away when you're like, well, wait, why would we distrust Munkin on the age? Why would he lie about her age? Like, what's the motivation for lying about the age? I know Maester Norrin's motivation for lying. He wants to make it look like there was this jealousy that broke apart the Blacks at the end of the war, rather than him like lying and creating a letter. Like, I know Mushroom's like motivation for lying, but when you take something like Nettles' age, why would anybody be lying about Nettles' age? Like, is anybody sitting there going, maybe Nettles is Daemon's daughter. Oh, we better change the age so that people won't think that. So no, like no, Nettles is not Daemon's daughter. Like it's just not the case. Um, Now, strangely, because now the show has made Reyna into the like, or perhaps it's looking like that Reyna is replacing Nettles. That somehow this is some sort of strange verification of that theory, but it just the text just doesn't support it. Like no, like Nettles is probably just a random girl, which makes her whole thing about the sheep interesting and part of her character that she had no Targaryen blood. Like I like the idea that she's not a dragon seed at all, and that she had no special ability to ride dragons, and then was able to use the sheep. It also like can affect our modern story when you're talking about people like Victarion, who has a whole ship filled with pigs, and whether or not he could ride a dragon based on the fact that he can just keep feeding his dragon pigs, or Quentin, who's trying to throw sheep, who tried to throw sheep or something. It affects the modern story, the idea that you can nettle a dragon. So, but I don't know how much, like, what adds to the story of them being related. Um, I mean, so that you could explain him taking baths with Nettles, and having a close relationship. It sounds like they were just like friends, and like honestly, the whole situation at the end of the war, if I were to really explain it, it's I don't think Rhaenyra was jealous of Daemon. I think I don't think any of that is true. I don't think she hated bastards or mistrusted bastards or any of that. I think that was all silly. I think that's all made up. It doesn't make any sense. I think that Nettles commanded, Rhaenyra commanded Nettles to go attack Aemond or do something really deadly, and Daemon decides to take a bullet and do it himself, and take it on himself to save her. Like that would be my guess of what's happening. That she made a military order saying, you know what, sheep stealer, I'm not going to send my husband to die against Aemond, so I'm going to send Nettles to die against Aemond. And Daemon's like, no, I'm going to die against Aemond. And that's my guess of what happened. Like that's, the honorable thing. But, nothing else really adds up. Like why Daemon is having this affair and taking baths, so like out in the open, and just silly stuff. Why Rhaenyra would be jealous of jealous and hating bastards. None of that makes sense. But anyway, we're obviously supposed to debate it. Nothing's kind of there, but I just don't buy in any way that they were father and daughter. I think she was supposed to be a nobody, like a true nobody, which adds to her character. Plus, if Daemon's into hot chicks, Nettles isn't hot. All right, on to the J-Lord hour. J-Lord, finally, I think the Royces know the accusation of treason, and Eddard's confession are fakes. I think many do, and Stannis' letter just confirmed their suspicions. And then this goes on. The Royces were among those Joffrey ordered to come back to King's Landing and give fealty or be labeled traitors. The Lannisters don't trust them. Okay. Not so loyal, Bolton, Ryswell, Dustin, and Slate. About the Royces wanting to join Robb as well, we know that Ned has a history with Jan, and it seems that they left King's Landing quickly after his arrest, as in fear for their own safety. I'm not so naive to think that the Starks have allies everywhere, or so pessimistic to think they have none. This is a different topic, but I have come to the conclusion that some northern noble houses are hyper Stark loyalists: the Manderleys, Umbers, Mountain Clans, Mormons, Serwins, Tallhearts, Hornwards, and Glovers. So this gets into this is a broad issue of specifically the greater House Royce. Let's leave off the table the lesser House Royce, the lesser House Royce is the much more interesting Nestor and Miranda, I think, is much more interesting characters. But so we have a couple issues here, like the Grand Northern Conspiracy in a larger sense, and the the place of the Royces in our story. Um, so the Grand Northern Conspiracy in a larger sense. Um, I think it's and you know, I understand it from a reader's perspective. The Starks are the heroes, and therefore we want, you know, we want to believe that that all of a sudden the heroes are going to have a bunch of support and are going to win this whole Game of Thrones. You know, that all everybody's going to turn around and be like, actually, Stark, and people are going to be able to bring them back into power. And you know, I understand the desire for that, because that's how the classic kind of fantasy story works. And you know, originally the last book was supposed to be called The Time for Wolves and things like this, and certainly the show went this route of all of a sudden a bunch of houses turning around and being like, yeah, Starks. Though let's keep in mind that in the show, the houses don't do it because it's House Stark. They do it because of the deeds and actions of Jon Snow. They make him king in the North not because he's a Stark. They make him king in the North because he is supposedly a great leader, even though Sansa does everything. So the Grand Northern Conspiracy, which is this belief that all of the houses and a bunch of houses in the Riverlands, and in this situation, I think you're going for House Royce as well, that they're all these, like, they're all secretly, you know, like, you know, secret Stark supporters, in the same way that like House Dairy is like keeping their dragon banners in their basement. But you got to remember, like, even if you're a huge Stark supporter, like, are you going to jump into a suicidal situation and die if for a lost cause? And in what way are you a Stark supporter? Like, it's one thing to be like, well, I supported Ned, and so now I'm going to support Robb, the obvious trueborn heir of Ned Stark. It's another thing to be like, well, I'm going to support Rickon, a 4-year-old boy, or I am going to support Jon Snow, a bastard. You know, those are two very big. Those are two, you know, completely different issues on what, you know, are people going to all of a sudden come out and be like, I don't care about bastards. I love Starks, Jon Snow all the way, on a cause that doesn't look that great anyway. You know, like there's not that many people left in the North. Like there's essentially two armies that might be 5,000 people about to fight each other and kill each other, and maybe the Manderleys have a couple more thousand people, but that's it. Like this is a situation where like the Dornish look stronger, like the Vale armies look stronger than what's going on in the North. And if you say, okay, well, you know, it doesn't matter, we want to make it like the show, and the Starks are the heroes, and we want to follow that. You got to remember that, like, we also know that A Dance with the Dragons is coming, and we know that there's going to be this Aegon Daenerys fight that George has hinted at a couple times. And so where do these Starks fit in this whole, like, the whole kingdom is going to unite behind, you know, Jon Snow and the Starks? Like, where does that fit you know, in this story? You know, and it's like, I just don't know. It seems such a long shot once you look at it kind of logically. And George R. R. Martin is somewhat logical with how he pushes stories to go. Like, you know, I understand that, you know, you're watching a romantic comedy, you know that the couple's going to get together in the end. And, you know, you're watching this and you're just like, well, somehow everyone's going to get behind the Starks. Like, somehow. even though it doesn't make sense. Like the original Grand Northern Conspiracy was dreadful because it's like, and then Lady Stoneheart, because she felt really bad about being mean to Jon, is gonna like convince the entire Riverlands to support Jon Snow, and you're like, whoa, where are you going with this? Because like that would never happen. Like, so I don't know. Like I don't see it. Like one line from a Game of Thrones talking about how the Royces wanted to join. Were angry at Lysa Arryn for not joining. That somehow George R. R. Martin is keeping that in his back pocket for 5 books, so that all of a sudden the Royces will be like, haha, you know, all the other stuff we were doing, Lord's Declarant stuff, trying to get Littlefinger out of here, wasting time with tourneys and arguing about Harry the Heir. All of that was actually irrelevant because we're secret Stark supporters this entire time, you know? Or, you know, you could talk about like the Tall Hearts and the Risewells and the Dustins and the Manderleys, like, oh, all of that, like getting angry about Hornwood Land and dealing with, and then tolerating like Roose Bolton and all of this. It was really, we were all secretly communicating because we're really pushing in for Jon Snow because of Robb's will. You know, it doesn't really seem very likely. In the end, it takes a lot of twisting of logic and human motivation to have all of these people that were like fear for their lives and could have joined the war and done more at better times, to all of a sudden come in and be like, yeah, Stark, yay, Jon Snow. I don't care that he's a bastard. I don't care that his lineage is weird and that he's dedicated himself to the Night's Watch and all sorts of other things that would be a problem, you know, that we're just going to follow him through and through because we, the reader, like Jon Snow. We, the reader, like follow him. So when I look at like the Northern conspiracies, I say, okay, there's very specific things that these Northern houses want. And you can say that maybe Manderley has, you know, some of these feelings and is willing to support Rickon and they're pulling in the Umbers and stuff like that. Like that seems pretty certain. But I don't know when you're like, how do we know about Tallheart and Serwyn? We're given so little on them. You know, how do we really know that they're talking and there's some great conspiracy? Like we're all just pretending to be with, we're all just pretending to be with Stannis. We're so honorable that we're going to support the Starks secretly, but we're also dishonorable in that we bend the knee and pledge loyalty to Stannis. But that honor doesn't matter. Like we're all honorable characters, but you know, pledging for Stannis means nothing. Like that's not real honor. I didn't mean it. I had my fingers crossed when I said I was pledging for Stannis because secretly Robb's will came in and we're all just for Jon, you know? It doesn't really fit with any of the characters in the story, to have this sort of like blind loyalty to Stark above all. Cause these are people that say like they believe in oaths and the legality of oaths and pledging support and things like this. Like, you know, like it's, you know, over time, I really don't buy like the grander Grand Northern Conspiracy. It's wishful thinking, and it also doesn't really fit the story that we know is coming, which is Dany's invasion and the second Dance of the Dragons. I mean, even in you know, if we're talking about like the Jon story, shouldn't he just want to fight the others? You know, so I don't know. I mean, I'm sure this will come back some more. I know you put a lot of super chats into this discussion, but we'll talk about it. We'll probably talk about it more later on. Let me talk about the this one, which is realistically the Arya Joffrey incident would have never happened. Period. High noble children were never unchaperoned in the Middle Ages. Yeah, that's true. It's a bit silly that yes, Arya would be off secretly with the butcher's boy. like jousting, and that the heir to the Iron Throne could go off unchaperoned with a young woman like Sansa into the woods. And it's just, yeah. I mean, who knows who you'd find? Like, not to mention the fact that they're hanging out with giant, deadly dire wolves. Um, yeah, you're right. No, I mean, nothing about it would make sense. Not, I mean, it's kind of silly when you think about the whole thing. Um, I'm trying to think, like, if the he probably should have just redid the scene, but had the Hound like chaperoning them, and the Hound like being back a bit and not doing anything, or somebody being incompetent or something. That would have worked better. Um, let's see here. Obviously, Nettles is Carmine's long lost daughter. That's true. That's not bad. That's not bad. Um, oh, the Black Pearl exists in our story. This idea that Damon and the Black Pearl had a child and then abandoned it on Driftmark to be a homeless girl who gets like physically mutilated because of her life of thievery, and uh Nettles is Tyrion. I think you're definitely supposed to think about the fact that like Nettles is missing a piece of her nose, just like Tyrion. I think that's definitely like something that's supposed to be there. Um, Maybe Nettles is a Dragon Keeper's child. Um, let's see. I gotta ban this dude. Um, I don't think that's a bad theory. I mean, there were dragons on Driftmark. Um, they would need dragon keepers of some point, of some sort, to deal with Laenor and Laena's dragons. Um, you could definitely make that argument that she was a dragon keeper's child, and that, but you'd think it would come up, like someone would be like, oh, Nettles, the dragon keeper's child, rather than Nettles, a random thief who was running around stealing stuff. You know, I mean, I think this might be a better story, but um, thoughts on the U.S. promising Russia NATO would never expand? Did it? When was this? I mean, this is one of these things like I can Google this for 2 seconds, and um, I don't really see anything about this, but I also don't understand um, I mean, here it says there was no promise to not enlarge NATO. Um, Here, I'll bring this up. Like, this is the source of this is Harvard Law. And then he talks about how, says that Vladimir Putin's claim about Ukraine are part of his disinformation campaign. So I don't. So it doesn't sound like there was ever, like, when you said to me, the first thing when you said like U.S.'s promise, like, when did U.S. ever promise that? Like, I mean, we've been like NATO's been enlarging pretty consistently for years and years and years. Why would there be why would anyone make a promise to have it not expand? Also, like, Ukraine's not in NATO, so like, this idea of like trying to reframe the Ukraine war, which the Ukraine war is 100% Russia invaded a sovereign country and is trying to annex territory, into a war against NATO and NATO aggression, is definitely like Russian propaganda. Like, that's just not what happened on the ground. Like, this war started because Russia invaded Ukraine. Like, the US didn't do anything. Like, there was no like NATO, like, it's not like US was even in talks with Ukraine joining NATO and being like, let's have Ukraine join NATO. Because one, like, you can't join NATO if you have a territorial dispute. That's like one of the defining things. So Ukraine can't even join NATO. But nonetheless, like, Russia invaded Ukraine. Like, it's very simple. Like, it has nothing to do with like this idea. I understand that people, like, the Russian disinformation tries to put this as all as like that there's this Western hegemony and NATO, evil NATO, which is just essentially an alliance, like, it is trying to take over. No, I mean, like, and even if it were, like, it's a like, what's so bad about NATO taking over? Like, this is a non-aggression pact, like, right? Like if you attack one of us, all of us are attacked, right? So why don't you just not attack them? Like, just don't attack NATO countries. Don't invade NATO countries. Like, wouldn't that be the solution? Like, or how about countries don't invade each other? That'd be a nice thing. So no, like, this is a really easy issue. Like, Ukraine is right. Russia is wrong. There's nothing like, there's no like complexity to it. Russia invaded another country and has been trying to take territory. That's it. Like, I don't like, people try to make this more complicated than it is, but it's not. Like, one country invaded another, and it can easily stop if the other country leaves, like, and gives the territory back. Like, that's it, But I don't know. US never promised this. There's no proof. There's no source on this. And even if the US did promise it, like, Russia's also promised not to invade countries, I guess, like, but here they are. So no. There's no, it is one of the simplest things that Ukraine is right, Russia is wrong. That's just it. Assuming Hot D continues past the dance, and Aegon III marries Daenerys Velaryon, do you think HBO will make Daeron, Baelor, Dana, and the Blackfyres black? Oh, that's a really interesting question. It's something I didn't consider. Huh. Now, what he's talking about here is the Blackfyres do have a Velaryon ancestor. Of course, the Targaryens have many Velaryon ancestors as well, and the Targaryens were not made black. But that is an interesting idea, that because Daenerys is a Velaryon, you could do the same thing with the Blackfyres again. And right. So here is exactly what we're going to show. Now, of course, the show messed up with, I mean, I don't think messed up, they messed with the family tree a bit. But here, this is what we're talking about. This might be a little small for you all, but here is, this little dark here is Daenerys Velaryon, and she is the granddaughter of Vaemond, who we all know and love. So uh, Daenerys could be, you know, made a black character, and then later she marries Aegon the Third, who then has Dana, who is the mother of Daemon Blackfyre, and she married. Now Daemon Blackfyre at this point would get lighter and lighter, but because I'm trying to think, like, even if let's say you make Daenerys Vaemon's daughter rather than his granddaughter, you could have her be like fully black, and then you could have her and Aegon the Fourth produce somebody like Laenor or something like that. You could definitely do it if you wanted. Um, that's an interesting. I'd for consistency and everything, and considering that they're always looking to have more representation in the show. I think that's a very good idea that you could easily have Daemon Blackfyre at least be half black. Um, huh. Yeah, no, I think I think they should do that. Now, when it will they eventually get to this point in the story? Yeah, maybe if HBO, this is all HBO has, is the Westeros universe, we may get eventually down the road. And I'm not talking anytime soon, but let's say in 5-6 years or something, we're talking something gets on the air or something that relates to the Blackfyres. I mean, Duncan Egg eventually will have a Blackfyre in the Mystery Night. So maybe. Anyway, I think that's a great idea. We'll see if they're in tuned in as as the rest of us. But that's not bad. It makes it worse thematic. Hello, hello. How goes it? Let's see here. I've got to add you in the guest room. In the guest room. Here you are.
Real quick, I'm just gonna hop in real quick to say this. Whatever it happens, like the future of the Targaryens post. Hold on. Oh, I'm sorry. Whoops. Let me just. The future of the Targaryens post dance is still super lily white, considering they just hired the whitest kid in all of existence to play Aegon Targaryen. So
Yeah,
like it's still gonna be like super duper white. So I see what like HBO was trying to do, but at this and I see what Ryan Condal was trying to do. He even said it. He included a bunch of black people to add diversity to the show. He literally said this, and that's fine. You and I have said this multiple times. It's fine, but it also makes no sense when you realize the guy at the first Targaryen we ever see in House of the Dragon, the old man Jaehaerys, is technically half black.
Yeah. I mean,
and he looks like the whitest human being on the planet as well. So, like, it's yeah, it's
yeah. I mean, obviously, they must have a completely different family tree, and granted, they do shift around the family trees. They even shifted around the family trees in Game of Thrones. I think they made Maester Aemond a great grandfather instead of a great great grandfather. Things like this. They like removed kings and generations. I think they removed Jaehaerys the Second as a king or something like that.
Did they?
I don't. There's some little things. There's little changes they made, and Vaemond is moved around in his relationships. I think Vaemond is what is he, brother to Corlys instead of cousin to Corlys? No, he's brother to Corlys rather than nephew to Corlys. Vaemond is actually nephew in the books and things like this. So there's a lot of moving around in the family trees. And obviously they removed the Velaryons from the Targaryen side, because we know that like obviously there's a whole bunch of Velaryon intermarriages before the show.
They have a habit of doing this. Remember the Marjorie's Tyrell cousins, who for some reason don't take over after the death of most of the Tyrells.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, whatever fits the story.
Whatever fits the story. How you feeling, by the way? I'm gonna hop off real quick, but how you feeling?
I'm feeling good. How you doing?
We gotta record a lot. We gotta.
You're feeling nervous about all the work that's coming up.
That's not work. Stop it.
What do you
Stop it. It's
feel
not
about?
work.
Yeah, yeah. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see.
It's not work. Do me a favor. I know you don't want to watch Shogun. That's fine, but you have to watch The
I
Boys because
do want to
that's
watch Shogun. I just
go
can't.
watch
I
it.
just don't have the time.
Yeah, what do you mean? You could have the other day, yesterday. Well, yeah, no, yesterday. You were gonna take your kid rock climbing, and then he fell asleep. That would have been a perfect moment to watch Shogun.
No, but I did. Well, I'm in a parking lot in Gaithersburg, Maryland. Like, what am I doing?
Why?
Like, no,
Why do you
like,
feel the need to say the location? I don't know. What?
no.
So what?
I mean, who cares if the people know it was in Gaithersburg, Maryland? But no, he like fell asleep. He fell asleep. He eventually woke up, and I took him rock climbing. But like,
Preston's such a good dad, taking his kid rock climbing.
yeah, yeah. Well, the things you try to do to get your kid exhausted, and then he was actually exhausted on the way there. So
No, but seriously, The Boys. You got to watch the. No, not The Boys. Gen V. You got to watch Gen V.
did you finish
And
Gen
then,
V?
look, how about you not worry about what I'm fucking doing? How about you worry about
Oh,
what you're doing?
you have
Right?
not
How about,
finished Gen V. Have
don't
you?
fucking worry about what I'm
You're
doing.
still watching Battlestar
First off, let me be very clear. That show is great, man. That show is great. I just got into the first
because
couple episodes
you're
of season 3.
you're only halfway through, man. He's at the height of. By the way, for people, he calls me and he's like
Oh,
I don't understand what you're saying. The show gets better and better.
That's not what I
It's
said.
incredible.
I got to the end of season 2, so good.
The Pegasus stuff was incredible with Ensign Rowe. I got like
Was that
I
Ensign
got
Rowe?
Ensign Rowe, the woman that's the head of the Pegasus. That's Ensign Rowe.
Hold on. I need to yell at these guys. Hold on. Hold on one second. I'm sorry. I'm just doing some other stuff. Wait, was that Ensign Rowe? Oh, that's why she looks so
Yes,
fucking
the same
familiar.
actress, Ensign Rowe. That's why
Ensign,
people
no
love her.
way. Oh, dude, she was awesome. I knew she was gonna be trouble.
And then he's like, oh my god, they just had their colony on New Caprica, and I'm like, yep, that's the height. He's at the height. And he's like, this show is so great. There's no way this show could fail. And I was like, you're on top of the mountain. You are living high. The time skip just happened.
Stop.
They're on New Caprica. Oh my God. That is like, and it's, oh man. It's
They're introducing like visions now, kind of with Xena having like the dreams and shit.
Yep.
And
Yep.
the chief married Callie, which like it's getting good. It's getting good. Hopefully season 3 continues to be like okay. We'll see. Maybe I'll think differently. Oh, by the way, before I let you bounce, I need to show you this real quick. It's about your boyfriend George. One second. Someone caught George being hypocritical, and
I mean he's a human being, but yes, okay.
Stop it. George needs to be a robot from the future that finishes this. I'm trying to find it for you.
Okay.
Here it is. I even highlighted it for you.
Okay, let's see what you got here. Oh geez.
I highlighted it for you.
I know. So what he highlights here is George saying in 2015, how many children did Scarlett O'Hara have? 3 in the novel, 1 in the movie, none in real life. She was a fictional character. She never existed. The show is the show. The books are the books. 2 different tellings of the same story. Then, 9 years later, 2024, he says, the book is the book, the film is the film. They will tell you, as if they were saying something profound. Oh, because he quoted himself. Then they make the story their own. That's
He's being a little hypocritical.
Yeah, that's really hypocritical. I mean, the fact that he actually like quotes himself there, and just like goes back on. Yeah, no, I agree. By the way, whoever found this, man, that's some fucking sleuthing. That's some
Someone,
sleuthing to
someone,
find that
someone
he.
in my, someone in my comments was like, "Yeah, George, said this." I'm like, "Can you send that to me?" And he goes, "Yeah, man, here it is." Sent me a
This
link and
is.
everything.
I mean, this is good enough that here. Let me bring this up on screen so people know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Because
download that shit.
this is Oh my god. By the way, like bravo to the person that found this. That's crazy.
I forgot the kid's name, but thank you, buddy. And someone
Bravo.
asked if we're gonna watch the new Star Wars. Yes, we are. We're gonna cover it. We're gonna like it. We're gonna love it.
Bravo. This
Love
is
Star
it.
Wars.
The show, the books. And this is the thing, is he's saying the show and the books are different. Let them be separate. Because he's talking about
By the way, this is season 5, Game of
yeah.
Thrones.
I get a lot
This
of
is season 5.
fans asking me for comment. Let me reiterate. I've said before, the show is the show, the books are the books. So he's essentially saying that like an adaptation can exist separate from the original, and that's fine. They're two separate universes. Let it be. Don't worry about it. And then here, he's saying the exact opposite. He's saying that these adaptations are, no matter how major a writer is, no matter how great the book is, there always has to be, it seems there always has to be someone on hand who thinks they can do it better. That like there's just this
To be
arrogance
fair,
to the
I'm going to defend
adaptation.
him here. I'm going to
Yeah.
defend him here. He's right and he's wrong. So when George originally said that, that was 2015. That was season
Yeah.
5. A lot of you assholes love to give season 5 like not its due. Season 5 was great.
I
I liked
disagree,
season
but
5.
okay.
Really? Like we got. We
Oh,
need to get a whole
I
podcast
know. I do not
topic.
think season 5 is any good.
Oh, you're out of your mind. You're out of, I think season 5 was very good. We had 2 dreaded episodes. We had like it's just it had some good moments. Um I know the sand snakes, whatever, but beyond the sand snakes, no, like season 5 had its phenomenal moments. I really I'll sit on that.
But
But
by the way,
see,
I do love how he like quotes himself. He quotes himself like
I don't
he's
think
an
George realized he
asshole.
said
It's
that nine
amazing
years ago.
because he goes, the book is
I
the
wouldn't go
show
that
is the
far.
show, the book is the book, and then over here, the book is the book, the film is the film. They will tell you. No, you fucking told us that, not they.
Probably doesn't
You,
remember him
you,
saying
as
this.
if they are saying something profound. No, you fucking said that.
I'm so sorry to the audience. I don't mean to rile him up so soon. But no,
That's
he said this before
wow.
the dark times, before the start of the crap, which I believe was
Yeah,
season 6.
yeah.
So I just find it funny how he like, yeah. Anyways, I'm gonna bounce. Have a
All
good
right,
stream,
sounds good,
homie.
man. Okay, if it makes it worse thematically, but everything does kinda. If she is a glamored singer or leaf, etiquette training, bathing with lizard people. Oh god, that's right. There is a theory out there that Nettles is one of the children of the forest because Nettles says she's like, I mean, Leaf says she's like 300 years old. So therefore, like Leaf is alive and kicking and fine. And during this time period, and the theory goes, Leaf speaks the common tongue. So she must have spent a great deal of time like south of the wall, like interacting with Westerosi while the rest of the children of the forest didn't. So the theory goes that, well, she's alive. She must have been traveling at some point in Westeros. Nettles is actually Leaf, and she's been glamored, and she's pretending to be Leaf the whole time. And I guess it goes that Daemon is the one that's actually teaching her how to act like a regular person. Really, they're not trying to wash the dragon stink from her. She's trying to wash all of the children of the forest stink from her. Um, um, huh. The human plus wyvern and fireworm DNA making a baby with a human plus deer, lizard, owl DNA, sterile donkeys, stallion who mounts the world. Yeah. Is it? I think it's from the text. This whole like, is it from the World of Ice and Fire? The idea that the fireworm is actually like interbreeded or something to create Fireworms are akin to dragon. Worms can breathe fire too. Instead of soaring through the sky, they went through the stone and soil. And then they were there before the dragons came. So some people think that they crossbreeded fireworms with um with like wyverns or something to make dragons, and that this was like some sort of like uh experiment by the Targaryens, that they did like some genetic engineering or crossbreeding in order to make the them. And then we've got the same genetic engineering somehow with the humans to like add in their DNA and stuff like that. Um, yeah, I mean, it starts getting very complicated. But yeah, why aren't these things sterile? um, by the way, Elio and Linda actually do believe they believe in genetic engineering, but they believe in that the Valyrians genetically engineered with magic, that they used magic to manipulate the DNA rather than science. Like if I were going to pull the theory, I'd be like, well, the Targaryens really actually had like were advanced technology before the Doom and whatever, it was all underground or whatever. But they believe it's with magic that they did genetic engineering, and that they actually like spliced their DNA with dragon DNA, like genetic engineering with magic. What are your thoughts on the Bolton theory? The my thoughts on the Bolton theory are that I don't believe in the Bolton theory. Like I understand why it came about, and it's mainly just because the Boltons are the most mysterious and illogical kind of group. Roose Bolton's actions are very difficult to explain. Why, when it's rather clear that Ramsay killed his own son, or he at least believes that Ramsay killed his own son, is he willing to tolerate Ramsay, who seems to be driving a wedge and creating chaos in the north with all the other houses? You know, and Roose does seem like angry, like legitimately angry at Ramsay for what he does. So like, why is Roose, who seems such a cool, collected, calculating guy, and also like timid and conservative in his actions earlier on, like I'm not sure if I'm going to put too many forces in. Let's hold him back and see where this war goes. Why is this type of character? Why would this type of character allow someone as reckless and brazen as Ramsay in his life? And some people say, well, it's just because it's his only son left or whatever. He's going to somehow forgive his son for killing his other son because he's his only son left, even though he's got a baby on the way with Fat Walda. So like, just kill Ramsay, let him go. Like, you've got a new baby coming. So that nothing really makes sense about Roose Bolton's story. And so people are like, well, we need something. We need some like use of Ramsay to Roose. I think the use is he can blame stuff on Ramsay. Ramsay does things, and Roose can go, well, it wasn't me. It was crazy Ramsay. And then he plans on killing Ramsay or having Ramsay die. But that he's just kind of utilizing him now. But the Bolton theory is essentially in that vein. Like, what's the use of Ramsay? Oh, well, the use of Ramsay is that Roose Bolton's going to take over his body. Because he's a timeless vampire or whatever. So I don't buy it, but I understand the motivation for a theory like that coming about. J-Lord says, I don't believe in the Grand Northern Conspiracy, just vague sensibilities that may or may not be relevant. Yeah, I mean, maybe. Obviously we get these hints of loyalty for the Starks like throughout the story. Like, we do hear the Royces say, oh, we should join the war for Robb, and get angry at Lysa in a Game of Thrones. And then we do have like the Northern clans saying like, "Oh, we're gonna go save Ned's girl," and we have Manderley saying, "Oh, we'll never forget the Starks. They let us live here in the North. The North remembers," kind of stuff. Like we definitely get those like ideas, right? Um, so those elements are definitely there, and I think they do connect with people because the reader really likes Ned and feels sad that Ned's dead, and you kind of project it on all the other characters, that all the other characters want that too. Weirdly, like the wildlings, Mance's wildling women seem to like have like respect Ned too. Weirdly, like all these sorts of things. There just seems to be this like love for Ned out of nowhere. So it's not like I don't get it. I don't understand how it can fit in the story. The show made it work by having respawning northern armies. Like just the northerners just kept spawning and respawning, and there were just more northerners, and so the Starks always had a relevant army. And it also made like it had the Vale armies just kind of like join Jon Snow for no reason. But again, it wasn't over Stark loyalty. It was just over Jon Snow and being impressed with Jon Snow. So yeah, there's elements of it there. I just don't know how it could fit in. Like people bring up Robb's will a lot. Like, oh, Robb's will. Everybody's gonna be really like loyal to the Starks because of Robb's will or something, or they're going to be really loyal to Jon Snow because they're going to find out he's the child of Rhaegar Targaryen. But I just don't know. I don't know if the characters that we've been introduced to in the story so far have been mostly self-serving and are just trying to survive by supporting whatever king is beneficial to them at the moment. And the ones that are loyal seem to die immediately. Like, so I don't know. That's true. I never mentioned Jon Snow. No, it's true. It's true. I'm just conflating. I'm conflating like what you're saying with like what I've heard other people talk about and like why these ideas come forward. So I don't know. Look, there's definitely elements of Stark loyalty in the text. There are. I just don't know how it can fit in with the story we have left, in the time we have left, because so much of the oxygen of the room has to be eaten by Dany and the Dance of the Dragons, the second Dance of the Dragons, and the others. Where do you fit in, like all this Stark loyalty? I mean, maybe it's this thing like right after everything's done, like the show did it. I mean, the show did it. Admittedly, the show did it. So I don't know. Oh, I hate the way theorists take the definition of Shaggy Dog's story to predict Rickon's future and not understand what a Shaggy Dog joke actually is. It is a little weird. I think it's just that no one knows where Rickon can go. So A Dance with Dragons definitely sets up Manderley and any Northern conspiracy being focused on Rickon. But most fans say, well, that's impossible. Like, it's got to be focused on Jon Snow, right? Like, this is what most fans say. It has to be like Rickon. That seems like a distraction. It's got to be Jon Snow. And so, well, how do you get rid of Rickon? Well, the show just killed him off, like just murdered him, made him motivation for Jon Snow wanting to invade Winterfell. Okay. How do you get rid of this character that you've set up to be important, and let's just kill him off. And so rather, you could have him just killed off, or like here, like, oh, let's just have his story like be a Shaggy Dog story and have it go nowhere. Of course, like a Shaggy Dog story is a story that you're telling the story and it goes nowhere, but it goes on and on and on and on and on. And then there's a lame joke at the end, And there's just not enough time for any Shaggy Dog story. Like Rickon's story isn't a Shaggy Dog story. Rickon's story is very brief. There's nothing Shaggy Dog about it. There's nothing except for the fact that like you know, he uh he has a direwolf named Shaggy Dog. That's about it. Nettlelessness would nettle us. That's true. It should be nettling. Nettling is a George R. R. Martin really likes is it nettlesome? He likes nettlesome. I think nettlesome, more nettlesome points. Yeah, George R. R. Martin. I think he uses nettlesome a bit in. Does he use it in Fire and Blood too? Nettlesome. Yes, he does. His Grace faced a nettlesome dilemma. He uses it twice in Fire and Blood. Nettlesome problem. He likes that word. I've never used nettlesome in my life ever. um, What is the most inconsequential, popular A Song of Ice and Fire theory? Second, who is the most altruistic character in the series? Huh. Um, Inconsequential. That's a funny one to think about. Because there are a lot of random theories that are inconsequential. It's funny that what's kind of funny is that in the show, the most popular A Song of Ice and Fire theory, R plus L equals J, was so inconsequential. Like that's the amazing thing is that the show, which a lot of people take the show as, you know, mostly canon. Like we kind of understand that there was a bunch of plot points that were revealed and everything. And in the show, like R plus L equals J means nothing. Like it means nothing. It meant Varys died. Like that's it. That was the only thing that came out of it. And so I don't think it'll be that inconsequential in the books though, if the books were to ever come out, because they I mean, in his outline he mentions that Jon's parentage is supposed to be a relevant fact. I mean, at least for him getting together with Arya and things like this. But so maybe if he ditched the idea of him getting together with Arya, maybe it goes away as something. But I'm trying to think some inconsequential theories. I do kind of think that Rob's will is inconsequential. I used to think even though, you know, I have the cat is the heir. I think I was convinced. Maybe it was about a year ago, a fan put forward like that. No, like in reality, Rob's will is more just it's just a literary mechanism for introducing wiping the taint of bastardy into the story. So because in a Game of Thrones and a Clash of Kings, like the taint of bastardy being wiped away by a king is never mentioned as a concept. But then in A Storm of Swords, it's of course a very, very important concept at the end of the story because Stannis is offering it to Jon and Jon refuses and chooses to become Lord Commander. It's this like big thing that he's giving up. But it's very clearly not in the other part. Like when Kat talks about her fears of Jon Snow, it's not that one day someone might like, you know, wipe away the taint of bastardy for him because Ned is best friends with the king. You know, like that's not a fear. That should be a major fear. It's just not part of the story. Legitimizing children by royal decree is just not a thing. So you needed to introduce the idea that kings can legitimize bastards, but you can't do it right at the point at the end of the story with Stannis and Jon, because then it seems contrived. So you've got to introduce it earlier in the story, know that this is a thing, legitimization of bastards is a thing, and then when it returns in the story, it means something. And I was quite swayed by it. And I was like, yeah, probably Rob's will means nothing. Like it really means nothing. George R. R. Martin is not telling us who it is because he's never bringing it back, and it's not really a part of the story. And it's just like it was there only so that Stannis could make the offer later in the text. I was quite convinced by that actually, and so I do think Rob's will is completely inconsequential and irrelevant. Because plus, like, say you find Rob's will, everybody's gonna be like, "Who cares? It's a dead king. Like, it's a dead king who's declaring Jon Snow, who's a member of the Night's Watch, like king. Like, it's just, you know, it's just not needed." So that's the way I'm kind of seeing it. I'm trying to think of anything else that's like completely some other theories that are really inconsequential. Because a lot of the theorizing is about dance and feast, and a lot of those events are going to be really relevant later. Hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's definitely some dropped plots and stuff that were where people debate like what was really going on with like the burning of Scherer and Wendish Town. You know, who really killed Balon, and it's probably never going to be told. It's probably never going to be revealed. That kind of stuff. But I don't know. I think Rob's will might be the one that fans like obsess about. That's probably never going to be brought back. Taiwan thoughts on Taiwan saying it's part of Russia. Another very funny. That would be a bold move of Taiwan to say that it's part of Russia. um, let's see here. Barristan saves Dany from the Dothraki. Deja vu with Aerys. By the way, can we get Carmine to do voices of animals in the fanfic? I could ask him, but he'd be like, no, no. He'd be like, yeah, I'm a horse. Nay. Barristan saves Dany from the Dothraki. Deja vu Aerys. It's not that I don't think that would be a very interesting kind of situation for him to do that twice and then feel regret over it, or, but I'm just trying to think like in a timeline sense, does that make any sense? Like, for I understand that the show went with Dario and Jorah traveling all the way to Vastoth Rock and saving and trying to save her from the Dothraki, only to find out she didn't really need saving. But let's really think about like what needs to happen in the Winds of Winter. Like Dany needs to get home. Like, she's got to be probably taken back to Vastoth Rock. Does Barristan have time to win the battle, survive, and then he himself go up and try to rescue Dany when he already sent a rescue party and somebody has to rule the city? And he doesn't really trust anybody. I just don't see the timing working out. Plus, like, she's got a dragon. She can fly everywhere. We can get Dany places. But Barristan on horseback, spending like a couple months getting to Vastoth Rock to save her, and a couple months, coming back. No, I just couldn't see that kind of thing. Israel doing the exact same thing that Russia is doing? Sure. Well, I'm not justifying anything Israel does. Jesus. P.S. And Dany goes mad after, just like Aerys. Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting, but yeah, I just don't know if there's time for it. I always think that like there's just not what fits in the story in the time that we have left. Like, There's no dawdling. We got to keep going. Got to keep going. Is Barristan able to make it all the way up to Vastoth Rock to save Dany? I don't know. I don't know. The God's Eye is a technological installation. You go there to use the God's Eye, which people can use to warg open air and stuff like that. It's, I mean, I definitely kind of think that if there is going to be, I guess like lost technology or lost magic, or those might be the same thing, that the God's Eye is going to have a bunch of that kind of stuff on the island. Though I don't think George, though, let's be honest, we're never getting to the God's Eye. Like absolutely 0% chance we're ever getting to the God's Eye. Okay. In the story, like never. Like there's some chance the Winds of Winter will come out, 0 chance the Dream of Spring is coming out. We're never getting to the God's Eye. But I always figured that the secrets at the God's Eye is kind of like, the beneath the Planet of the Apes kind of like secrets, right? Like what's down there, it's the Statue of Liberty, and then you go down there and you find your ancient civilization of super powerful telepaths or whatever. I hope you all know my reference, my Planet of the Apes references, but I do think it's like the beneath the Planet of the Apes kind of secrets, like, and whether it be ancient magic or ancient tech, like forgotten after a long night, nuclear winter, whatever kind of situation, other situation, and that all the answers are there, but George would be very subtle about revealing what exactly it is. It'd be a little abstract and broad, where you could maybe figure it out through many readings, but it would be but I do, is there something there? So the God's Eye, some people brought up, geologists have brought this up, that there's something called a caldera. And the interesting thing about calderas, and I'm going to bring a picture of this. So when if a volcano collapses into the ground, we call that a caldera. And sometimes the volcanoes fill with water. And then sometimes they end up with this, like, through the collapse, this one little like island in the middle. And so like geologists kind of make this joke about the God's Eye, like it being like, to them, like, oh, that's a caldera, Now, did George know that much about, geology? Is he just trying to make it Avalon, which is an island in the middle of a lake, right? So it's fun to think about. But was there a similar situation when we start talking about like the Doom of Valyria being on a big volcano and everything collapsing and there being a big accident? Like a similar kind of situation happened at the God's Eye, that there could be some ancient tech and a collapse and everything there too. So I'm all open to all those sorts of ideas. I don't know if George ever even decided. He just kind of, I think he created a mystery box and would figure it out later. But knowing him, most of his mystery boxes are, there's future tech. Most of his mystery boxes in his short stories are like, it's Planet of the Apes. It's Planet of the Apes. What if Jon Snow is a Shardane, Brandon Stark's son, and Dany is actually Rhaegar and Lyanna's daughter? Dany trades babies. House with the Red Doors at Starfall. Yeah. So this was a theory that I put forward. I guess has it been close to 10 years ago. My Tower Joy Joy puts this theory forward that um, that Ashara that John is actually the son of Ashara and Brandon. The theory being that if John is the if John is the child of Ashara, then there'd be some um, disputes over Starfall, and him being the only son of Brandon, the eldest son, would make him the heir to Winterfell. And so by placing him as the younger son's child, who's younger than Robb and a bastard, you're like triple making him not in the line of succession for Robb, and which would explain the secrecy, because it's an heir thing. Like, he married Kat in order to have Robb be the heir, and the reverse being, Dany has so many dreams about being Rhaegar. People stand-ins for your parents is tends to be more of a thing than stand-ins for siblings, but she has all these dreams about Rhaegar and everything, and that Ned's attachment to Dany in a Game of Thrones, which is rather inexplicable, is mainly because it's Lyanna's daughter. And I think it's a fine theory. I think since the time I did it, I think the lineage game that everyone's kind of obsessed with, that I was obsessed with, is maybe missing the point of everything, and that if the story is about how we shouldn't be choosing leaders based on their lineage, like, why is making of these major characters' lineage like a major plot point so important? And so I kind of now like the idea of Dany being a dragon seed, that she's actually nobody, that she's a bastard this whole time, and things like that. But yeah, I mean, it's certainly a theory that I put forward and championed, and it's the theory that, by the way, when people talk about, if you find anybody that hates Preston Jacobs, it's usually because I put forward this theory so many years ago, and they still are angry about it. Like, that's really the real reason why people are like, oh, that Preston Jacobs, that tinfoil asshole. Like, it's really that theory. R plus L equals D, B plus L equals J. Like, it made people angry. What's funny is that now R plus L equals J is kind of out of fashion, just because, like, the show ended and R plus L equals J was nothing. So now it's just like, this whole fight over it was all for nothing. I mean, it's all for nothing. This is a stupid book, but yeah. To counter Carmine, Egg isn't a descendant of Aegon the Third. That is true. There's no. I'm trying to think if there would be how much Valyrian blood. Aegon like, when the last time the Valyrians do start stopping breeding with the Targaryens, and one could make the argument that actually the Targaryens never had the ability to ride dragons. It was always a Valyrian thing. That the Valyrians were the only ones with giant dragon riding abilities. And the minute you stopped marrying Valyrians, like, everything went away. Like, you could very clearly make that argument that Targaryens never had the ability to ride dragons. It was always Valyrian blood. So let's see. Yeah, like, Aegon is what, son of Daron. Trying to think how much he's Maekar. He's Maekar's kid, right? Yeah, and Maekar is married to a Dane. He was Daron. That's yeah, he married the Martell, and then Daron is he's sons with, yeah. You're not getting any Valarian stuff until you're going all the way back to like Damon and Rhaenyra. So there's no Valarian blood like later on. So yeah, maybe it was the Valarians. It was the Valarians the whole time. I've never seen anybody put that theory forward. The Targaryens don't have any dragon ratting abilities the Valarians do. Like that should be the one put forward. Though I guess you could argue like Daenerys the Dreamer and the original, maybe they didn't start marrying Valarians until they moved to the area. So maybe, well, we don't know anything about their family trees. Maybe his dad was Valarian. So who knows? Get to it, gents. Okay, Erwin. I'm not sure. um, Hey, Preston. I recently watched Andor which I really enjoyed. I read the next the next season will go 3 episodes at a time and have 3 separate 1 year time jumps. Whoa. Your hopes for season 2, sister, huh? I mean, I trust the writers. Like, as long as there's the same writers on Andor season 1 as there are on Andor season 2, I trust them to write a really good story. These time jumps are very interesting, and it's very different. But as we saw with House of the Dragon, time jumps can be even very, very difficult. Time jumps can be pulled off. Like everything that went wrong with House of the Dragon, I don't know how much the time jumps were a problem, except for maybe Kristen Cole beating to death Joffrey Lonmouth. That's probably a time jump thing that really like was a problem. But like when I think of all the things that went wrong with House of the Dragon, you think like, okay, God mode Daemon, uh, dragon through the floor, that kind of silliness. But not, the time jumps were handled pretty well. So, yeah. So I would say that I think they can do it as long as it's the same, writers. I trust these writers because they did a fucking phenomenal job. I was recently in a conversation with somebody about Star Wars, and I was playing a joke, and a joke I believe, but I'm always like, all these Star Wars properties. There's been 3 good Star Wars properties: Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and Andor. Because everybody's thinking you're going to say Return of the Jedi. You go, and Andor, the 3 good Star Wars products that have ever been made. But that's fascinating. I hadn't heard about this time jump thing, but it should be interesting. Let's see here. Hold on a second. I hate the questioning of paternity in all the stories based on features rather than political machinations. A purple baby from 2 white parents doesn't prove anything. Joff was most likely Roberts. That's kind of. I mean, the only thing that that makes Joffrey, the only thing is that Cersei was not having vaginal sex with Robert. Like, I would say that, like, up until A Feast for Crows, I think that's very much the case. Like Ned Stark's super sleuth with his book of like features it's stupid. It's really stupid. It would prove nothing. It would prove absolutely nothing. However, like the fact that Cersei in A Feast for Crows is like, yeah, we didn't have vaginal sex, and I would purposely give him fellatio and triumphantly lick the semen off of my hands and face so that he wouldn't have children with me, verifies that like they're they're not. They're not. They're not Roberts. But if it weren't for the pale sticky princes um, idea, like if we weren't in Cersei's head for pale sticky princes, then I would completely agree with you. But we do have like the idea that she wasn't doing it. She wasn't having vaginal sex with him. Um, oh, we're back on talking about like George R. Martin, who quotes themselves. I'm sorry. It's like it's so funny because it's like an hour later, and I'm like, oh right, these. Huh? You should let's play Lorelei and the Laser Eyes. What is Lorelei and the Laser Eyes? Huh? This is on Steam. Oh. Yeah, I've not heard about this game, but this is what he's talking about. Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, and apparently, um, it's a 2012 puzzle game released just this month. Um, we assume control of a woman who is invited to participate in a mysterious project set in an old mansion. She must explore the mansion and find out what's happening. Um, becomes more dangerous and surreal. 150 puzzles to be completed in a non-linear sequence. I mean, it does sound fun. It's on Steam. I don't know about like if I can play it in a if I can play it in Windows and Nintendo Switch. If I could play it in a web browser or on Mac, that'd be one thing. But 95% on Open Critic. If only. If only. Um, um, hey, let the Dragon Demands call in. I think Dragon Demands has my call in thing. He can call in whenever he wants. I think I gave it to him. Um, one wildling. I think that one wildling woman's an Umber, and the other wildlings don't like Starks. There's a couple things. There's something in Clash where she mentions the Starks specific, where Egret mentions the Starks specifically, like not just Northerners. She talks about the Starks, that the Starks, and she keeps mentioning that like Jon is the bastard of Winterfell, as if that's like more significant that he's a Stark bastard. So like, mainly because of this like Bale the Bard story, but like there's something very like specific. Hey, there it is. How's it going? It mentions the Starks specifically, like not just Northerners. She talks about the Starks. All right. You gotta. Dragon Demands, how you doing?
Hi ho.
Hey, what's going on? What's going on?
A couple of things. A couple of things in rapid succession because I don't want to. Last time I was on your thing, I was interrupting someone else, so I just talked really fast for 5 minutes and then got out. Stupid plan. But a couple of things rapid fire because you were meandering about. First, Andor is having time skips because originally they wanted it to be a 5-season show, and they said we realized that would kill us. With the level of quality of season 1, we can't do that. So what they were going to have as a full season will now be a 3-episode arc. And they're going to make season 2 as a series of 3-episode arcs that would have been seasons, and they're condensed.
Oh, I see. How many is it? How many total episodes are in the season?
I'd have to check, but this is public info. They've
Yeah.
talked about this, so they did plan it out, but it's condensed. We'll have to see what they're doing. And
Hmm.
what a year that was! That late 2022 or 2023?
I think it doesn't seem that long ago, but
No, just what a year for a 12-month period. We went from Boba Fett to Andor, and I'm not knocking Boba Fett. It's just more of a
yeah,
zany genre.
it was late 2022 was Andor.
Okay, the point is, and because you meandered through a couple of things, also you brought up Storm's End and the nuclear silo theory.
Mm.
This is another one of those things on the list of, at the rate I'm going, I will barely catch up with all filming news just as season 2 begins. That I wanted to go through every podcast interview every writer and director ever gave. And 2 years on, I haven't been able to do that through a series of random misfortunes, such as when I broke my fingers in a snowblower. So I'm at least keeping pace with the news.
Okay.
Like I said, there was news catch up I wanted to do that I got that making of book. And in the making of book, one of the other things they did remark on, I can't find the right page now, I'm holding it now. They do mention the art director, Jim Clay. We made it a point that Storm's End does not architecturally look like anything else you see in Westeros.
Mm.
Because they read the book and they just paid.
Yeah,
these guys are nerds. These guys are fans like us. They paid attention that, according to legend, this thing was always here and it was built by the civilization that came before the Long Night. Whereas everyone else is like, they were Celts. They had rink forts. How the hell did they build Storm's End? And we're like, well, it was always here, and they also built the wall. So just was this a Western outpost of some Essos empire? But that is a good detail, and it's a good fuel for a short video. I'm looking for I wasn't able to catch up on it among a bunch of other things, but Jim Clay was going through all the art styles. That Valyria is very brutalist, that they have this Spanish Mediterranean look for King's Landing. And then there was this one key interview where he said Storm's End has to look like it's this Lovecraftian relic of, not, I don't mean Lovecraftian, I mean the way when Lovecraft wrote about lost cities, that it's just lost human
how do you
cities.
feel about the Long Night being a nuclear winter? Do you think that's too crazy?
I don't think he's going to go with modern in that sense. But then again, you've got Wheel of Time is like in the far future, because the whole thing that the first age was us, but the second age was an age of magic after us, and they're the ancient past. So maybe the whole Clark, that advanced magic technologies. Maybe there's ruins of a more advanced civilization under Moat Cailin or something. Doesn't mean, it's Pern, where, it's literally technology. Just maybe there was something, because thinking of the whole that Martin loves the Lovecraft stuff with the lost civilizations, but it doesn't really matter. We'll see what happens. Just saying, I like that detail, that you're really into that they made it a point that for as briefly as it appears, Storm's End doesn't fit. And they made it a point to stress that.
And they were aware of that, yeah.
So it just points to them. So the other thing, getting back to the point of your video about Nettles.
Yes.
And I already made a second follow-up video taking time away from other things just to stress this. Nothing is confirmed. We have no idea if she's been merged with Rhaena. And there is a small chance that maybe Rhaena is just, they expanded her dragon Mourning or something, and Mourning broke out of its gate and she's chasing it. No one ever in the leaks ever referred to Sheepstealer by name. And it's just the whole thing of, I talked about this in my videos, that we didn't want to accept that, look, they cut Lady Stoneheart. She's not magically going to show up in the first episode of season 4, or we are getting weird reports about season 5 before it came out. That, on the one, I had to stress to everyone, the real response from a lot of people was, you must hate Nettles for saying leaks indicate she might be cut. And it's like, it's not a matter of liking her. I do like Nettles. I'm warning you guys, that people just believe what they want to believe.
Right.
I've been guilty of that.
I think it's a bad
with,
even if they choose to have Nettles, which looks to be, if they're going to do it, it'll probably be in season 3. It doesn't seem like, because we have no casting report, we have no shots of her. it doesn't seem like she's in season 2. Now, obviously,
Oh
she could,
well,
you know,
I'm
she,
not bothered by that because by
yeah,
that logic, Dayron isn't in season 2. They're going
sure,
very slowly.
but why wouldn't you introduce such an important character? Maybe they're going to introduce her in season 3, but why would you not introduce her earlier? Why wouldn't you? I think it's a bad move story wise to not have her introduced earlier. Um,
I don't know what they're doing. The point is, my thing was in my whole.
yeah,
I've talked about this, that I was presented with clear evidence from the trailers of season 5, like what Elio and Linda were pointing out. Why are they sending Sansa back to Winterfell? And I said they wouldn't do that because it's crazy. And I was in denial. Just so many people like they wouldn't cut Nettles because I think that's stupid. Isn't evidence, but there is counter evidence of like we've seen spy photos of what I think is more than one black woman lined up. Everyone points to
mm-hmm.
the one with the giant afro, and I'm like, there's another one to the right of her who is okay. You remember your Indiana Jones and Last Crusade, that it's the unadorned cup. It's
Sure,
Nettles isn't wealthy. Why would she be the woman wearing jewelry? She might be the one
right,
who looks like a common shepherd girl on the right if you look in the wide shot.
yeah.
Just the point I'm going, there is a serious chance, I mean, a real non-zero chance that we'll have everything. That Nettles will be there. We'll see. It'll be like a stunt double, but you can tell they'll be setting her up. She'll come in the season 3 premiere, and the vague rumors of Rhaena finding a dragon will turn out to be, oh, we expanded her with
This
Morden.
is what he's talking about with the spy photos, spotting various women that,
Yeah, and I
you
said I
know,
think the one on the right looks more like what I think Nettles would look like. That she just looks like a commoner.
sure, yeah.
But again, like I said before, I think this is like when they had Selyse, Stannis' wife, technically, I'm making air quotes, appeared in season 2, and they just had like a stunt woman playing her as a
Yeah.
seat filler, and then they actually cast season 3. And I'm not going to repeat my whole video on your thing of if they do this, and the bigger measure will be how they tell if they even make this change. Do they present straightforward, this is why we did this, or it'll be like when Benioff and Weiss did creatively, it makes sense to us because we wanted it to happen, and then they stopped giving interviews. So I'm not going to rush to judgment. I'll wait and see. And right now, I'm a guy who thinks Winds of Winter is going to come out by this Christmas,
Yeah,
based on
no,
Martin's
I
schedule.
know
No, that he's
you're
okay.
you're
Okay,
an optimistic
realistically,
you're an optimistic guy. I think no
the other
way,
thing is,
but
well, the other thing is he puts the hard chapters last, like he wrote the Red Wedding last. If
yes,
at
he does. Yeah.
Christmas he says, because there's like 75 chapters per book. If he
Right.
goes, well, I thought I'd be done by Christmas. There's literally 5 chapters left, but they're difficult on the level of the Red Wedding, but the end is a matter of months away. I'll consider that a win.
Mm-hmm.
If he gives us actual numbers and goes, oh, I'm down to 5, but they're really hard chapters, that's progress. That's good. That's good. But I think I'm thinking Christmas just because he canceled all of his other projects.
Right. I mean, that's behavior, of somebody that might do that. Unfortunately, but I would say that it's not how he acted with Dance. With Dance, he was very vocal about being near the end and cutting chapters and having this many chapters. Well, he didn't say this many chapters left, but he would give more information. He'd be talking about it. It was on the tip of his tongue, um, and he wanted to talk about it rather than like what he's watching, like when he writes blogs about what he actually like thinks about, what's on his mind. When the Giants are playing, he writes about the Giants. When politics is going on, he writes about politics. And so when he's not writing about wins, I tend to think he's not thinking
Man,
about
you've
wins.
got to watch. You got to make the time to watch Shogun, man.
Yeah,
It's
I
got Martin's
know.
seal of approval.
I know.
So it's
But it's
just
I mean it's the same with any of us, right? Like when we're thinking about a topic, we'll find a way to bring it up in a conversation with people. When I'm thinking about something, it becomes the topic of my stream. Like that's kind of how George is, and the fact that like it's radio silence on wins makes me think it's radio silence
or
on
maybe he learned his lesson. Is radio silence. That's my other point. Haven't you noticed that he's conspicuously booking a lot of public appearances at Worldcon and other things, talking about his stuff come fall?
I mean, that's true. He is. He does have some more bookings. It's true. That's I'm not
Okay.
saying you're not you're not when you got the cork board up, you're definitely drawing lines between something. But I just don't think the lines are actually what you're thinking the
Well,
lines
I'm
are.
trying to pace myself on here better without yammering your whole thing. But you yander it. The first thing was Storm's End was actually really cool. It's what a fan would do. Second thing is I was down. I'm like, I have hope for wins. I might as well hope for Nettles because you have to stress to them, stop believing what you want. But on the other hand, well, I can't disprove she's in it.
Yeah, yeah.
And then even then, I didn't realize how many people were really into that. She isn't a Targaryen, and it's like, but they're lizard people. They need the dragon riding gene. I thought she was a bastard. That you can be like a bastard. Daenerys came from nothing. She lived as a street urchin, and at the same time, paradoxically, she's Daenerys effing Targaryen.
Right, right.
So I thought Nettles was like a Daenerys figure, where she's the fact that she technically has bastard blood doesn't diminish that she's clever the way Daenerys was. I
Mm,
didn't see
mm,
a
mm, mm.
contradiction in that. And it really surprised me, the dialogue of what if they do put her in the show and very clearly say she's Daemon's daughter. Would that, I never considered that might generate a lot of backlash when it was a reasonably prominent fan theory.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
No, I mean it's.
I don't know.
If you Google anything about Nettles, it's like that's the main theory that comes up is
Yeah,
that she's the daughter of
okay.
Daemon, even though
All
I
of
don't
this,
buy it.
and I'm trying to pace myself here. All of this was the merest preamble offering of, okay, I'm talking about A Song of Ice and Fire, but
Mm.
within 5 minutes to bash Carmine for Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
It's once upon a time, this was my fandom. This is where I cut my teeth. This is because when I was a kid, I was a Star Trek fan, and this was the revenge of the Deep Space Nine writers.
Oh yeah.
And just anyone who was a sci-fi fan was head over heels of, we had never seen something this dark, gritty, and realistic before.
Oh yeah.
2005, this was the it show. I met Ron Moore more than once
Oh
at
really?
convention. No, I was quite on the online scene. I was a figure there. Different
I,
screen
I
name at the
knew
time.
I knew his son.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
yeah. Went to college with him. Yeah.
Well, it was another lifetime, and I was in college at the time, but I was a kid. But cut my teeth on this, so I was really in there, and firsthand, I saw the show declining. So I wasn't just a casual viewer; I was one of the fan site people, like going through interviews, and podcasts were a novelty at the time. And on top of that, like nowadays, my whole thing is no one bothered to actually watch the Blu-ray commentary that Benioff and Weiss did to see they're saying really absurd things. This is 2005. Podcasts and audio commentary from the writer were a new thing. That it's so weird the passage of time that they put them out same week. These weren't even DVD things that are out the same week. So I was in it. I saw the whole thing. And yes, as you taunted Carmine, as soon as they leave New Caprica in the middle of season 3, it's like a switch went off and the show died.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, by the way, I misspoke. I didn't know Ronald Moore's son. I knew Glenn Larson's son. I'm sorry. So
I see.
a little different, but
Okay. Well, I actually met Richard Hatch at a con, and like I hung around at all of his panels. This was the height of Battlestar,
hmm.
and I was one of the new Trek fans who did not appreciate that all these old fan people are coming in yelling at us that they changed things. And one of the best experiences of my life is the wisdom he imparted of, oh, come on, we were struggling against the studios in the 70s. They were trying to kidify it then. I was trying to treat it as real art. That he took this seriously. And just from his life and career, trying to do reboots, he took it so seriously. He had humility of saying, oh, yeah, that was silly. We didn't want to do that. And just his enthusiasm for it. It's just, and I felt so bad when he died a few years ago. Just, I went from being, oh, he's with the bastion of the old show to, wow, this is like
Yeah.
one of the big famous people I've met who imparted knowledge to us. Well, the thing was, because I was in it for so long, I actually have this 4-point thing, which I could easily rattle off in 2 minutes of what happened to the show. Not just, oh, this is bad, but my whole shtick is, what the hell was going on behind the scenes in the writers' rooms that ruined everything? That you can't just go, I hate that they're doing TV Dorn, that you have to hear this is what the writers were doing, the whole Doyleist perspective thing. So
Yeah.
there's a 4-point thing of what happened. Now, the other thing is, who am I to talk that Battlestar was my Lost? And
Sure.
I remember that was a big thing in the 2000s, the mystery box show where they're peeling back and they didn't actually come up with a mystery. That
No, you're absolutely right that like Battlestar Galactica suffers from the same problems of Lost.
And in many ways, we inherited this from X-Files. The older kids than me from my sci-fi club were really into X-Files, and then they got to the Chris Carter effect.
Right.
So,
you know, I mean, I would say that like in the future, if you're going to do mystery box, have at least a pretty good idea of what's in the box. And if you want to change it to something better later on, great. But at least have something good in the box.
Yeah.
Don't go forward with nothing in the box. Like it's like
to hurry up to the point because I don't want to keep you too long. The thing is, like, 3 big shows in order did that before the 2007 writer strike. After that, we stopped doing the mystery box and shifted to like Breaking Bad and stuff. But it was Lost, then Battlestar, then Heroes. And I had like my best friend at the time. She was like one of the big Heroes fan site people, and it was painful seeing the same thing happen to them. So I was kind of
Heroes season 1 was fucking great. Yeah,
I know, but just it was weird that the whole mystery box thing of 4 points of what was going on behind the scenes. First, and this is to. I'm not trying to bash Carmine. I'm trying to warn him and give him some grounding, as opposed to, oh, am I alone and helpless for not understanding this? It's, dude, you effed up behind the scenes. This is your fault. This could have been beautiful. And it was for a time. Point 1. Ron Moore, like the mystery box thing, never planned out the central mysteries of the show and later admitted as much. And it was stunning how flippant he was.
Yeah.
If you want to look this up, it was the post-finale thing at the Paley Center is on YouTube, where he explains the nonsense. He calls it the mosaic, where, oh, I just take random ideas. It's as if I'm throwing them against a wall like a mosaic, and then I try to write them together, and I can beautifully make them fit retroactively. And you realize, and the people around him are eyeing him, realizing he shouldn't have said that. That it's painful to watch him doing that. So, and that's the whole thing. You think Carmine just mentioned, oh, Pegasus with Admiral Kane. It's the strict toxic boss is the easy enemy to hate. The hard point is the person who is too nice and indecisive and permissive. It's hard to hate Robert Baratheon because he's fun to be with when he's not doing his job. Or the other thing I think of is Aenys and Maegor. That it's hard to recognize. Maegor's the easy enemy to fight. And Aenys isn't even a bad person, but it's you are not a good ruler. The whole thing that Aenys will grant things to anyone who comes to him and not realize I already promised that to someone else. So, first off, the first 2 things are related. Ron Moore didn't even control his own story. Point 2, as he explains at length in the commentaries, he would just put in any idea one of his other writers told him. And in good faith, they'd assume, oh, he worked that in. And only later did they realize he was just so permissive. He would, when you see like the Boomer and Hilo baby, he's already seen season 1, the Boomer and Hilo baby thing. He later admitted, I had no idea where that story was going. Through the run of the show, they were writing by the seat of their pants, and someone else suggested it, and he just put it in. And the other writers thought, oh, he must have worked it in cohesively, and he didn't. So the whole thing just became this hodgepodge of saying yes to every idea, like a story round.
Yeah.
And these are more concrete points, though, for Carmine. The 3rd and 4th points of what happened behind the scenes. Well, I think some of the other writers wised up to what he was doing, that he doesn't really know what's happening. And to this day, I'm still surprised Sci-Fi managed to hush up that, oh, literally half of the writing staff left, including all of the women, between seasons 2 and 3. And you could feel it. In season 3. That half of the writing staff left.
Gotcha.
And the core writing staff, and like even Ron in like the season 3 commentary for the finale, you have to read through the BS and the spinny thing. He admitted The female writers were the ones who wrote President Rosalind, and without them, we kind of lost her as a character.
That's fair enough. Fair
Yeah,
enough.
I could see that. Now, the other weird thing is
What's
the
the
two ones.
fourth? What's the fourth thing? Because I got to get back into
I got to get
the
back to it.
thing.
Okay, the quick thing is those two female writers were Carla Robinson and Tony Graffia. They wrote some of the best episodes of the show, and they left. And one of them worked on this great show that I was like, wow, tonally, this is the year after they left. There was this new show that was tonally the same apocalyptic thing, but with better pacing. It was the tone of the early seasons. And that was a little show called Terminator: The Sarah Connor Chronicles,
Yeah,
starring a little known actress, Lena Headey. So you could tell where the writers went, that they left, and that you could even tell tonally this was more them than it was him. And the fourth point, which was the bane of our existence, is Sci-Fi Channel got in their heads that the way to get new viewers is to order a show to drop its major plot lines, to make a season of standalones, to make it easier for new viewers to hop in. That sounds insane. It is, but they actually did this more than once. They did this to Farscape in its fourth season. It's what ruined the fourth season of Farscape. That Ward later admitted they ordered me to drop all of my running storylines after New Caprica, which is why it is this incoherent mess for the rest of the bulk of season 3. And he'll admit in passing, oh, there was this other storyline with the missing Sagittarian story arc. It was about racism and factionalism, not unlike The Walking Dead, of like, even after the apocalypse, our racism and our factionalism is still there, which sounded like a pretty good idea when he mentioned it. He said, they made me throw it all out. And we didn't realize these weren't B plots. They made him throw out his A plots.
Right.
And this is to the point, I don't know if you can catch this on DVD, but when they aired these things, they were putting out deleted scenes after the credits. Sometimes other episodes would treat them as real, others wouldn't. It was a hot mess. And the lesson I think we can gain from all of this is we will never have a 20-episode sci-fi show again like Star Trek: The Next Generation. That we will never order a show again to drop its running storylines to get new viewers. We have streaming TV now.
Yeah.
I think the show suffered from being at the cusp of when we were shifting to the streaming era.
Yeah. All right. So I gotta keep going. So
I know you do,
thank
but
you,
thank you,
Dragon
heads up on
Bands.
what the hell was going on behind the scenes on that.
Yeah.
And I'm not looking forward to seeing his soul crush. He just saw the middle of season 2. He just saw New Caprica. Oh God. It's like seeing a man who you know his wife is cheating on him, smiling and walking back home, and you know what's waiting for him, but you don't have the heart to tell him. How can I crush this man? But I got to do the right thing and tell him they screwed up behind the scenes.
Okay. All right.
So,
well,
here's hoping I hope we get Nettles. I hope we get Nettles when we get Dayron in season 3, that they'll be setting them up.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Dragon Demands, and I will talk to you soon. I got to get back into these super chats and everything, and but thank you. This is some cool stuff, and maybe in the future we'll talk more about Battlestar when Carmine gets to the end and he gets.
I don't know if it's painful. It's painful. It hurt. It's hurt a lot. A lot of people got hurt by just how stupid Martin. That's how I first got into Martin. He was one of the people yelling about God did it. I've seen Clarion students beaten up for that kind of ending, and that's what. Wow, this Martin guy sounds like he knows what he's talking about.
All right, sounds good. I'll talk to you soon, okay?
Yep.
Bye. All right, now I think that the one wildling woman, back to J-Lord. I think that one of the wildling women is an Umber, and the other because the other wildlings don't like Stark. This is this idea that is it Willow? I might be. I'm trying to remember. So what we know is that Umber did have a daughter who was kidnapped by the wildlings, and thus the Umbers are supposedly hate the wildlings. And this fact just might be introduced as, we need the Umbers to have a reason for why he hates the wildlings. And then other people say, well, why is this fact brought in? Maybe we're going to meet that daughter later on. And so there is one of the wildlings who might be around the same age, because the wildlings are various ages, and one of them speaks kind of with a I think she says "my lord" or something, or says "Lord Eddard" or something like that. And so some people think that perhaps one of the wildlings is the Umber daughter, and Mance is bringing her back as part of a hostage exchange to the Umbers. Now, there are some things to think about. Like, wait, half the Umbers are there. I mean, I think in Winterfell is Horsebane. And like, would Horsebane know what she looks like? Why wasn't she passed over to Horsebane? Does Horsebane know everything? Things like that. It's definitely some interesting stuff to think about. I think, George probably left these kind of questions open, being the gardener, that maybe, he gardens a lot of little things. But yeah, the idea that one of the wildlings, one of the spear wives is the Umber daughter, and that she's being brought in some sort of hostage exchange, like agreement, in order to help the Umbers side with Stannis or something is a question. Vengeance and Ghost. Ghost acts like a ranger. Corran suspects and picks Ghost for the team, not Jon. Plan B, throws Jon to the wildlings. I mean, Ross is almost fucking with me. He knows that like my most frustrated piece of the whole series is probably the Jon Corran Halfhand like story. Like, why is Corran Halfhand obsessed with the direwolf and Jon? Why do they take this really weird trip where somehow he gets Ygritte, and even though there's violence, he's like almost sure that he's going to somehow save Ygritte, and that'll somehow endear the wildlings to him, and then he'll somehow sneak in Jon into the wildlings. Like, it's clear he kind of wants to get caught by the wildlings, because he starts like building fires and things like this. It's this long convoluted thing. And if it's Corran's master plan of everything, I'm like, it's just such a out there extreme master plan with so many moving parts that it's hard to believe that it worked. And if it's not Corran's master plan, what the fuck are they doing? Like, why is he so obsessed with Ghost and Jon Snow and wanting to get caught by wildlings, or just being reckless and all sorts of weird stuff? It might just be like really poorly written stuff, like George didn't know where he was going with the story and was like, tell Mormont that the old powers awaken. And you're like, what the fuck does that mean? Like, what would Mormont think? Like, oh, old powers are awaking. Like, okay. Like, didn't he have a white try to kill him in a Game of Thrones? Like, why does he need to be told that the old powers are awakening? Because what? Like, Jon is a warg? Like, none of it makes sense. The fucking Corran story. Oh, and I did a whole video series on it trying to make sense of it. But in my heart, I know that it's just poor writing. I wouldn't poor storytelling. The writing is beautiful. Whatever. But could Benjen be in Ghost? Like, why does Ghost like go to the like find the cloak? The thing is who buried the cloak, the fresh cloak, if Benjen's in Ghost in a second life? And doesn't he have to kind of be near the direwolf to be near Ghost? Ghost was on the other side of the wall when Benjen went missing. So how is he shoving his soul into Ghost? And isn't Ghost already attached to Jon Snow? Wouldn't Benjen somehow need to be like Varamir Sixskins level to wrest the direwolf from him? I mean, come on, it can't work out. Cutting Nettles feels like them saying, we already have our black people on the show. I really hope they're hiding her, or she'll be in season 3. Yeah, it might be that, but it might also be like they have all of these characters, and they're like, well, we have Rhaena, and Rhaena does nothing in the books, so except to wait for her egg to hatch. Let's do something with her. It's kind of like, I would compare it to in the show Game of Thrones, like when Sansa was given the Jane Poole plot. Like Sansa kind of hits this point in the story where she's not doing very much, right? Like A Feast for Crows happens, and they fast forwarded through that whole plot, I think even in like season 4, right? And so like, what do you do with her? She walks down a mountain, and then she like talks to people at a tourney, right? So like, okay, let's give Sansa something to do. Let's give her the Jane Poole plot. I think it might be more like that. We introduce this character. She should do something. Let's have her do something. Let's give her the Nettles story. Hopefully it's not that, but I mean, because there's not much Nettles. Once you make Nettles into Daemon's daughter, like there's not much story to give her. I mean, isn't the story itself like the affair? And the jealousy? Oh well. Still in my theory, I sent you and hope you read one day. Daemon was probably grooming Nettles to be a dragon rider bride for Viserys II or Aegon III. That's an interesting idea. That he finds this dragon rider and he wants to continue on dragon. He wants to continue on the line of dragon riders, and so he's finding dragon riders to marry to his own children. I'm trying to think. Aegon and the war is 10, and so I guess there'd be a 7-year difference. It's not so bad. Like he comes of age, he's 16, she's 23, she still can have kids. 18, yeah, that could possibly that's a possible motivation. That's possible motivation. That works. That he wants, that he's looking for her to marry Aegon III. It'd be it'd be quite the I'm trying to think. At this point, though, Joffrey is heir, right? By the time he's bonding, with, and Joffrey is heir, and I think Joffrey's betrothed to Manderly, a Manderly daughter. So it'd be better if it were for Joffrey, considering that like Joffrey is a proven dragon rider and the actual heir to the throne. Even though it'd be quite shocking to marry the king to this like random bastard girl, or maybe he was choosing Aegon III because he's not heir, and so they'd let it happen. I mean, it's an interesting idea. Really can't see a world where Barristan the Bold survives the Battle of Fire. I think if you're going off of like show plot points, yeah, probably George's original idea was that Barristan dies in the Battle of Fire. There's a lot of things set up for him to get killed, but I think there's some interesting ways to take the character. If you have him, say, captured by Victarion or something, that might be an interesting way to go with the character. That's about it, though. Like, I can't see him going back and ruling Meereen. I can't see him being around Tyrion again. Like, it doesn't seem to fit. The only way out I see for Barristan is for him to be captured by Victarion and have him like join the Ironborn plot. But I think probably George's original plan was for him to die. Because Barristan's plot only exists because Danny isn't there, and also like to do. And so once you have Tyrion be the point of view in Marine, like he doesn't kind of have a point to be there anymore. I think Sansa and Tyrion are going to end up consummating their marriage. Fits with her learning what a pretty man is worth from the Queen of Thorns. Trying to think about, let's see. Sansa is only 14 in the story at this moment. And so you kind of say, well, how much time is there really left for Sansa? For everybody. And you kind of say, okay, like at absolute most, like 2 years, right? Like Winds of Winter is 1 year, Dream of Spring is another year, unless he does a crazy time skip. But you're bringing Sansa to 16 now. Yeah, George already had Dany having sex at 13 in a Game of Thrones. It's true, but it does kind of seem weirder with Sansa for some reason. I don't know, but I suppose you could have that, but I don't know if it's like would Tyrion come back and she would be happy with like her marriage to Tyrion and consummate with him. I don't know. I kind of just, I'm just so stuck on the idea that her life is so much more interesting as Elaine, as Baelish's daughter, and like inheriting Harrenhal. That would she want to be Sansa again and then consummate her marriage. Or no. Oh, random one. Ever visit Detroit, Michigan? Any thoughts? Just curious in all your travels if you hit my homeland. I have been to Detroit. Detroit is it's not what you expect. You hear these stories about Detroit being like crime ridden, and it's a very spread out kind of empty feeling city because the streets are wide and it's so big and the population has dropped that it feels really kind of almost empty and lonely when you're around it. But everybody that I met was the friendliest. I mean, obviously, like, I went downtown to the casinos where everybody kind of hangs out, and I mean, everybody was very, very friendly. But it definitely like has a very sad, depressed economic feel to it. But of course, I'm from Baltimore. I'm used to that. But it's just the weirdness of Detroit is just the fact that it like feels so lonely and big and wide. That's the amazing kind of feel that makes it feel different from anywhere else, But yeah, no, I've been to Detroit. I've been to Detroit. Devin, Valyria equals Numenor, doomed in a mysterious way, and is superior to the mainland, and the remnants conquered Middle-earth. The Empire falls. A future heir struggles to unite the Empire, Aragorn, Dany. All of this is kind of true, but I think that a lot of people jump to Lord of the Rings for the fantasy parallels when probably most of them were more related to Michael Moorcock and the Elric kind of stories. And in that story, there is like a dragon isle, and the character is an albino, and he's in a battle with his cousin. They're both in love with the same other third cousin or whatever. There's many more similarities to the world of Elric than there are to Lord of the Rings. Now, obviously, Lord of the Rings is influential and influential to all fantasy, and so it kind of like they all start melding and you get these interesting similar stories together. but um, but I think it's more. I think you're going to find more interesting, obvious like parallels and similarities with like Moorcock's work than with Tolkien's work. I mean, I understand a lot of people are just like, oh, I just realized John was Aragorn, and you're like, kind of, but not, not really, like, oh, the Return of the King kind of like, this is before season 8. Like, the R plus L equals J cult like was totally into like John being Aragorn. Oh, the Return of the King. It's like, yeah, does that sound like George R. R. Martin? Do you think George R. R. Martin would write that book? Like it's so. I mean, in this situation, you're saying Aragorn is Dany, but a lot of stories have this old doomed land of the exiled people, like, kind of returning and being the only ones left and stuff like that. So, I mean, you're talking about like Atlantis and stuff like this, So it's I think he takes more from, like, I would actually say that George R. R. Martin takes more from Conan and Michael Moorcock than he does from Tolkien. It's just that everyone's very familiar with Tolkien, and so I think he, language wise, I think he steals a lot from Wheel of Time. The Second of Winterfell and Red Wedding both happen in 299 AC. Which was first? Does Manderley find Wex and know Bran Rickon are alive before the Red Wedding and Robb's will? Can't work out the timing. Oh, that's very interesting. So let's see. The Sack of Winterfell, obviously, like in book-wise, we think of Sack of Winterfell being the end of A Clash of Kings, and so Red Wedding being at the beginning, at the middle of the Storm of Swords, we sort of assume that the Red Wedding happens later because that's the way we read it. But it's not necessarily the case. But then the question of which would Manderley find out about first, like when he finds Wex, because like, could he find out about Wex before even, because the Sack of Winterfell happens, Red Wedding happens, but then Wex is going to be captured sometime in that, or found somewhere in that time period. Could he have found Wex before the Red Wedding? That is a fascinating idea. One thing I will say about, and I think I talk about this a bit about like the North, about my ideas about Wex. Of course, some people are like, George is making a mistake, but anyway, when you look at like the North, okay, here's Winterfell, and supposedly, just for shits and giggles, Wex, for no fucking reason at all, like, decides to maybe follow Rickon and Osha for a little bit before somehow being found and brought down to White Harbor. So Wex, some people think he followed them for a while, some people maybe not at all, but nonetheless, Wex ends up here. If you're Wex and you're an Ironborn in the middle of the North, you would naturally go to Torrance Square. Like, Torrance Square is the obvious location you'd go. That's where Dagmar Cleftjaw is. Like, why would you do anything else if you're Wex? You're a 12-year-old boy and you just survived a massive like death, and you're just like, what do I do? Oh my God, I'm a scared little boy. the most obvious thing you do is go to Dagmar Cleftjaw. It makes no sense that he wouldn't go to Dagmar Cleftjaw. I mean, but then other people are like, the story of Wex doesn't make any sense at all because he's hiding in a tree with direwolves right there. They would smell him. I don't care about all the freaking smoke or whatever from burned out Winterfell. There's a kid in a tree right above you. Like, direwolves, like, he's right there. So, like, obviously, like, the Wex story doesn't make any sense at all. However, I do kind of sit there and go, okay, look, Wex went to Torrance Square and my guess is that Wex went to Torrance Square and was at Torrance Square and had that information about Rickon and Bran going off. And then once the Red Wedding happens, then all of a sudden Dagmar Cleftjaw realizes he has some leverage because he knows where the heir to the north is. And that's when he sends Wex to White Harbor to treat. That would be my guess on what happens. That's the most logical thing. Now, is that the story? I don't know. I mean, the story isn't necessarily logical, but it makes sense to me that, like, it's just, why wouldn't Wex go to Torrance Square? Of course he's going to Torrance Square. And of course, like, Dagmar must be involved in these talks with White Harbor. There must be something going on with Dagmar Cleftjaw. That's my guess. But so my guess is that Wex chilled at Torrance Square until the Red Wedding, until they heard about the Red Wedding, and then reached out and realized that they now had some leverage. Because before it's just like an irrelevant fact, right? Like, oh yeah, Rickon Stark and Bran are alive. Well, who cares? I mean, Robb Stark is the king of the North, right? Doesn't make any difference what his little brothers are doing. His little brothers are worthless until the Red Wedding happens, and then Wex can go out and treat. But that's my guess. But I think it makes the most sense. But we'll see. Perhaps Nettles are the friends we made along the way. Nettles some friends. She confirms OG did have Vag lovey-dovey in the beginning when Robert yells for Lyanna. We don't know Moon T's efficacy. Stop censoring me, Google. Oh. Yeah, that might be a good catch. That's a good, let me look at this. That every once in a while they did actually have vaginal sex. I'm trying to remember, trying to find the passage about him mentioning. Oh, is that the wedding night or something? I'm trying to remember, like, when Cersei, like, mentioned the that they had sex once. Because let's see, Joffrey's age is Joffrey. All right, so Joffrey's birthday is in what? Gotta find the actual. Here we go. All right, so Joffrey is born in 286, so he's conceived in 285. I'm sure they've been married for a couple of years at that point. But that is the thing, is like whether or not they can, like, occasionally do have vaginal sex. Because didn't he also say that, like, Robert would get drunk and kind of like force himself on her, and he felt she was doing the same thing by doing it to Mayweather. So, like, right? Like her forcefulness on her drunken forcefulness on Tana Merriweather is supposed to represent her trying to feel like Robert, like him drunkenly like forcing himself on her. Um, so yeah, no, I'll concede that they must occasionally have vaginal sex. She can't be she can't be she can't be stopping it all the time. So yeah, there's definitely is a chance that Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen, any of the three or all of them, are actually Roberts after all. Um, yeah, I'm with you there. I'm with you there. Um, Knowing that they happen to be around the same time, is it possible that Mance defected because Gior was named Lord Commander of the Night's Watch? Trying to think of, so I mean, obviously we hear about Mance coming to Winterfell under Corgyle. So you're right that like Corgyle is he's fine under Corgyle, but isn't his whole story that he defects because of like the cloak thing? That he adds some like red silk into his cloak and they don't like it or something? Isn't that the story? Um because he sometime between 286 and 288 he visits Winterfell, and then years later, I have a whole wow. The wiki has a whole calculation on this timing, as if George R. R. Martin thought about this shit. Um, Mance was attacked by a Shadowcat while ranging. He was healed by a wildling woman. He recuperated. She mended the torn cloak and switches the red silk. Upon returning to the wall, Dennis Mallister requires Mance to replace his mended cloak, and his infringement of freedom, he abandons the Shadow Tower to live with the free folk. So I mean, maybe that was his secret. I mean, the story is very silly, right? And I understand that, like, as readers, we're like, well, there must be something more to this story, or this story is stupid. Like, why would he be doing that? But he certainly claims his problem was with Mallister, like, and it wasn't with Corgyle or Mormont. And so, although it's possible, um, I do wonder. Now, if you were to say like some sort of, if we'd invent a larger story to the situation, we know that like the entire Shadow Tower votes with Mallister, like whatever Mallister chooses, all those votes get to be chosen for Lord Commander. So it may be that there was another candidate that Mance preferred, and he had convinced all of his friends that they wanted this other candidate, and Mallister was like, no, he's lowborn or whatever. I'm going to choose Jeor Mormont. And he was just like, this is bullshit, and leaves. Maybe even Mance, well, they would, if it were Mance himself, they would have mentioned that he was going to be elected, but that'd be at least a more interesting story. And then you could say like what the red silk represents, like his candidate, who it was, and why Mallister was against him, and like had the whole election go. Uh, but I do wonder how any elections would go, considering that like the fundamental conflict of the wall that exists during the election of Jon Snow, it would exist at every election, right? Like, unless Pike wasn't there yet, like, Pike is against anyone that's too high, and Mallister is against anyone that's too low. And so Jon Snow is perfect because he's in the middle. But that doesn't explain how George Mormont would get elected. George Mormont would have been highborn, and he would have been, and Cotter Pike would be like, that guy sucks. But so maybe Cotter Pike wasn't the head of Eastwatch by the Sea yet or something. But I don't know. I mean, and probably when this line was written, which was going to be I guess it would have been in Storm. It would have all happened in Storm. Maybe. I mean, if it were something like this, that he was against George getting elected Lord Commander, I think it has to be more related to Dennis Mallister's actions to get George Mormont elected. Like that there was actually somebody else, maybe even him, that was or a candidate he wanted that was going to be elected, and that Dennis Mallister was against or something. But I would think that the conflict would be with him and Dennis rather than him and George specifically. Elden Ring has an all-powerful shut-in, sick boy character who magically forces people to love him, but he is trying to usurp the big tree religion. Yeah, I mean, you're going to find the same themes, jumbled around with Elden Ring. Though, I mean, people argue about how much George participated in what was written by him and what was not. Like people say, oh, the big grand story was him, and all the other stuff is people that liked George R. R. Martin, that wanted a George R. R. Martin story. But yeah, it's a bit silly though. My joke is you hire George Lucas and he comes to you with a story about a large battle station that can destroy planets. You'd be like, fuck you, George Lucas, and that's what he does that's what he did with Elden Ring, right? Geez, your story is honestly about a big tree that collects souls. Sounds familiar, so yeah, you're gonna have a lot of these there's a lot of similarities once you kind of go through Elden Ring. The first boss you fight has these big golden Lannister lions on him, and then the next one is a wolf. You fight a wolf, and things like that. And there's a festival city like Croyane and all sorts of things, like a dead festival city and all sorts of things. Why limit the number of chapters in the fanfic? You should get everyone to where they need to be in as many chapters as needed. Keep up the good work. I agree with you. If that yes, the story should be the story should drive the length, not the length driving the story. I do agree with you. And in fact, the reverse is true. If everybody gets somewhere faster, maybe it should be shorter. I think it also, though, it helps keep things tighter and faster if we know that this has to be done in a certain amount of time. I don't want there's only so many chapters we can produce in a year. We don't want to be doing this forever. If we really even want to get to finishing Winds or finishing A Dream of Spring. So I think, keeping the story moving and keeping events moving and being well, come on, let's get this done. Let's get this done in this chapter. We need to get this done in this chapter. Let's move. I think that's, important to get the story, to get the ball rolling. So we're not just spinning our wheels. The Tyrion story of A Dance with Dragons. So, I mean, I agree with you. That the story should fit should be driving the length, not the length driving the story. It shouldn't be a teacher in school being you need to write a 5-page report, and then you're sitting there at the end of 3 pages being fuck, But I think it's helpful to try to keep the plot going and being what needs to get done, let's get it done. So I get it though, but we'll see if we can see if we can get it done. Theory: George R. R. Martin has been super productive ghostwriting as Rifugine na Magnanote. All right. What is this? What is this? Oh. This is a pen name of a Japanese novelist who does the series Mushoku Tensei. He doesn't reveal his face. I think he's kind of like that Daft Punk, is that it? The one that where we don't see their faces. But yeah, this is this dude. This is this dude. We have no idea who he is, and he does this series. Mushoku Tensei. Oh. That's why. Does it? Oh no! Does he do this too? No wonder the guy doesn't want to show his face. Orcoerotica. Orcoerotica. Oh. I mean, funny as hell though. Sorry to derail, but as we enter thick, meaty election season, outside of Sam Cedar and Preston streams, what news sources should I be using? I believe it or not, like I mainly use Daily Kos, which obviously is like, it's a left leaning website, but at the same time, like they really do highlight the most important stories and that are relevant to like elections and things going on in America. Like I'm very happy like using Daily Kos, which is a funny thing, right? Like so I don't know. Like I don't feel like I'm not informed, like I hear about all of the major news stories. Sometimes I read the chat sections a little bit. They're short summaries of everything. And that's about it. It's weird. I mean, I know people are like, "Oh, really? Daily Kos?" Yeah, I find it a really, really quality kind of way to get my news. The trying to think of like anything else I check. I mean, obviously, I do also see what's going on like CNN or whatever to see in Washington Post. I do read the newspaper in Washington Post and stuff, but and then on YouTube, I like David Pakman quite a bit. I like Sam Cedar. Sometimes I see what Vosh or Hassan Piker are talking about because I like to know what's buzzing around younger people's minds. Like Daily Kos is very much like these are Democrats. These are Democrats, people that support Democrats. There's not too many like, crazy ideas about supporting third candidates or supporting communism or anything like this. Like it's just, the Democratic Party. And then, but I do like to see like what, other people are thinking. Um, so that's where usually where I get my news from. It's funny that, yeah, the Washington Post, Daily Kos, um, and a few of the streams, David Packman and Sam Cedar. That's the majority report, but yeah, it's a pretty important election season. It's kind of end of the world here. Um, could Missandei have been poisoned by the same stuff as the waif, thus looking like a child? Um, I think that's definitely what some people think. And I definitely think that George R. R. Martin has put seeds in that in case he wants to do that. I think the waif is suspicious. She's absolutely suspicious. She appears in places she shouldn't. She's highly intelligent. Like there's no reason that Missandei should be like that. And when she says she's 11 years old, like, and everybody's like, how can she be 11? Nothing about like her story with her brothers makes sense if she's 11. Um, anything. So I think that definitely George was thinking that maybe he was going to make her a faceless man. I don't know if he's committed to he committed to it, or if he's just like, but I don't know if anybody I don't know of anyone that doesn't finish A Dance with Dragons and consider it as a possibility. Like it's very clearly that George wants us to consider it as a possibility. Like maybe it's a red herring, but you don't put that stuff in the Barristan chapter about her being super smart and like devising plans and her being intelligent well beyond her years and her just appearing secretly. Like you don't put that in if you're not trying to make people think that she's some sort of faceless man. Like, of course, that's what George is doing. He's making us suspect that whether it's true or not, that's another question. But I think that yes, like all of that is certainly a possibility, and I think George wants us to explore that possibility as readers. Favorite Lindelof work? Just started Mrs. Davis. I think I connected the most with Leftovers, but I think abstractly, like if I'm really judging series on their like objective worth, I think that like Mrs. Davis is a much better series. That I think it's better written. I think it's better paced. I think it's funnier. I think it achieves more. I think it's more original. Um, like as much as I love the Leftovers, because it's so emotional and you connect with it, there's a lot of flaws to the Leftovers. I mean, there's a lot of things that just go nowhere. Like the son's plot in season 2 is the dumbest thing. Like, and that season 2 in general is a little rough for me. But so, I mean, I think I felt the most like emotionally with the Leftovers, and I think Watchmen is fantastic too. But I think Mrs. Davis might actually be the best one. I think it might be the best one. I think it's his best work so far. Um, but I think the Lost is on the bottom, which and then and then Watchmen. I put Watchmen and Leftovers are kind of tied. I think they're both great, and I think Mrs. Davis might be the best one. It's a really good show. I laughed so hard at different points. Um, Jacob and Dragon demands for this Jacob and Dragon demands mashups. Do you think the series will reach the Regency after the Hour of the Wolf? Yes, I think they will definitely have Hour of the Wolf. What like how into like are you talking about like all the different regions that switch with Aegon the Third? I think they'll only do that if the show is really, really successful and they don't know what else to do. I think like storytelling wise, the story comes to a natural conclusion with putting Aegon the Third on the throne. Like you have one episode for Hour of the Wolf or something, and or 2 episodes for Hour of the Wolf, and you end things there. One of the weird things about the story is that Rhaenyra dies a good half year before Aegon. So you have a lot of time between the death of Rhaenyra and the death of Aegon. And yet she's like, they've set Rhaenyra up as the main character. She is the spiritual center of the story, you know. And so you can kill, you know, yes, like Alicent is still around. You can still like follow Alicent, and maybe you could have the end of the story be Alicent's death, spiritually speaking. But it does feel like, how much more do you want to linger in this story after Rhaenyra's dead? You know? Like, I feel like Rhaenyra dies, you want to start fast forwarding through the rest of Aegon's reign, and then fast forward to the end of the series, like, because once Rhaenyra's dead, you know? It feels like that's, you know, to me, like, the story is introduced with Rhaenyra and Alicent. If Rhaenyra's dead, like, Rhaenyra's dead. Like, that's the end of the show, you know? So I do think they're going to touch on Hour of the Wolf and like the start of the Regencies, but like I don't think they're going to go very far into it unless there's like unless it's a really really great show, a really really popular show. Benjen already has a direwolf north of the wall. I mean, you know, I suppose there's direwolves north of the wall. The idea that Benjen, he goes on these rangings and he's actually like bonded with a direwolf, and he comes back and he just wants to get back to his rangings because he has a direwolf. But he has to be at like Varamir Sixskin's level, right? Foreshadowing at the feast with the quiet wolf observation. You could see a direwolf. We could use a direwolf like you at the wall. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I guess, you know, he's a ranger and he'd be going to get the direwolf. But then where's that other direwolf? You know, and why wouldn't he do the second life and the direwolf he knows better rather than Ghost? Right? Like he'd be more comfortable going into the direwolf he's like imprinted on. And we know that Jon isn't. We don't know about. I mean, I suppose Bran feels like there's singers in the Ravens, but like we don't really know about people, like 2 people being in the same animal. You like Varamir skips Sixskins, rips one away, and there's like echoes of people in there. But if Jon is definitely the controller of ghosts through A Dance with Dragons, like without Benjen being in there, you know. Anyway, with the fanfic, the goal is to cover all the point of views with a few chapters, or are you going to push out some out for A Dream of Spring? I think the goal is that all of the point of views that have appeared previously are going to appear in the Winds of Winter, with the exception of Ned, Aerys Oakheart, and Catelyn. Like, you know, for obvious reasons on those 3. But everybody else is they're going to get a chapter, at least one, you know, preferably more. But I can't think of like anyone that would not get a point of view, and it seems to work out. I think it can be done. Oh, obligation, quarterly reminder of the Damon the Hero video. Yeah, I should get back to that. There's a few things I've been pushing before that. I was working on getting my book finished with editing, and you know, I've been trying to push out the next fanfic chapter to the editors, and I've been trying to do an over analyzing. I was hoping to get to the end of like to catch up with the show. I don't think I'm going to make it. I think I'm like 1 or 2 episodes like shy, but like I was going to try to get there. So this is why like various things like end up ahead of Damon the Hero video. Oh well. Oh well. It's not going to be a long night if there's only 2 years of story left. It's going to be at least longer than a normal winter. But we don't need to. I mean, I think there could be a time skip to like the epilogue, but I think just I mean, they're only dreaming of spring in the last book. They're not actually getting spring, right? It'd be funny though. Everybody's like, it's going to be the longest winter, and then it's actually only like, oh, that was only a 2-year winter. That was only a 1-year winter. Oh, geez, we were completely wrong about everything. That was the shortest, mildest winter ever, huh? Fantastic. Daemon has spies in King's Landing. Must have known Vhagar's not there. He's behind the deaths of Rhaenyra's Velaryon children by putting them in danger. Luke Storm's End, Jace the Gullet. So his sons can be king, hence marrying Nettles to Aegon III of Viserys II. Let me think about all of this. Okay. I'm piecing this together like, okay. So here's the problem, like Jason the Gullet, is that his own children of Viserys and Aegon III are put in great danger, great danger with the Gullet. I mean, the Gullet was about trying to bring them to safety, and them nearly dying. I mean, he actually thinks one dies, and one loses his dragon, and becomes scarred, right? So Daemon planning the Gullet to kill Jace would be pretty crazy, because it got botched pretty bad. He's putting if the whole idea is to get rid of these guys before his kids, so he can put them on the throne. That's pretty crazy. Now the thing is also, both Jace and Luke are married to his daughters, or betrothed to his daughters. So, you could say, okay, maybe in a sexist sense, he wants a man on the throne, but his daughters are going to become queen, and they're going to be the mothers of like future Targaryen heirs and things like this. So it's really hard to buy the Jace Gullet thing, considering that Aegon and Viserys like went through what they did at the Gullet. The other thing is like Luke at Storm's End, like, I don't know if anyone could foresee like that showdown happening. Like, did anyone think that like Aegon was really going to get into the sky and like murder Luke? And supposedly he does this because a little girl like tells him that he doesn't have any balls, right? Could Daemon really foresee Aemond like killing Luke? In that situation. The other thing, I'm trying to think like whose idea it was. I think, isn't it Jace's idea to go on the trip? Let me check on that. Got my Fire and Blood open, because I want to say there's some blood and cheese. Okay. Like, do we have anything that this was Daemon's idea? She says, All efforts of reconciliation had failed. Soon after, Jace Valarian was flying off. Doesn't he say at the end of here that he's got to do? He says, first act. I want to say that I know in the show it's Jace's idea to do it, but I want to say that he does this in the books too. Um, hmm. So let's see here. Here we go. Yeah, here it is. Then spoke up. Let's show here. Oh, it's the same. Then spoke up the queen's eldest son, Jacaerys. We should bear those messages. Dragons will win the war quicker than ravens. And his brother Lucerys agreed. So it's, unless there's some like crazy off-screen convincing where Daemon convinces Jason Luke to volunteer themselves into these dangerous situations, and he had like some crazy like idea at the gullet, and it just got botched, and his own like kids got in danger. But I couldn't imagine, I couldn't imagine it. But it would make more sense if he's, if he finds Nettles, and then starts getting close with her, and is like, you know what, I'm going to marry her to Joffrey. Once I have them set aside that Manderley marriage, which doesn't count, Mokusho Tensei wrote 26 volume epic in 2 years. He is not George. Let's see. Cedar's declined, in my opinion. Less logic, more ad hoc Mean Girl arguments. They do their own like. If I'd have one criticism of the Majority Report, but they do it because they have to survive, is they do focus a lot on like scandals of the right wing hosts in order to like get clicks, like what's happening to Crowder, how's Crowder's life falling apart, what's happening to Tim Pool, like that's a lot of their money, is making videos making fun of the right wing machine. But if they're talking about something interesting, I might talk, I might go in. All right, this is a good point. Jon is clearly in control of Ghost and no one else except Bloodraven and Bran. That's it though, not Benjen. All right, that's a very fair criticism. All right. Okay. You got me there. That everybody else, yeah. Okay. Fine. Benjen's controlling Ghost. No, you're right. Fuck, everybody's taking control of Ghost. Ghost is easy. Ghost is easy. Duolingo streak count? Yeah, well, I didn't get any tonight, but my Duolingo streak count is because I forgot to do it because of the stream. But what am I at? Oh man, I better do tomorrow. I got no streak freezes left. I better. But I'm at what 7? Here we go. 761, 760, 761, 761. I better do it tonight, man. I better do it today. I better not forget. All right, we made it. But yeah, the made it to the end. Thank goodness. Oh, it's such a feeling of accomplishment when I get to the end of my when I actually catch up to the end of the comments. Man, oh man. Um, Party and Ghost Soul. Ghost is just a dirty slut. Like anybody can go into Ghost. Ghost lets anybody in. He's just open. He's open like 7-Eleven, man. Who am I killing in the fanfic? A ghost? I'm not killing Ghost. Maybe I'll kill. Maybe Benjamin will be dead. I don't know. Poor Ghost. No, Ghost is making it. I'm dozing off. It's the end of the stream. So any last things before I head to bed? The Carmine never called back. He's too busy watching Battlestar. How's physio going? You know, I've tried to like do any sort of movements on my finger, and it's just so incredibly frozen that I don't understand. I don't know like what they can do, unless they're like gonna somehow like re-break a finger or something like that, or something like that. Oh, you said Ghost would be an epilogue, thus dying. So we do have one example of someone not dying in a prologue epilogue, and that is Chet. Like Chet survives his epilogue. I mean his prologue. Granted, he dies shortly after. That's true, but he does like there might not be a rule of thumb, but yeah, should Ghost die in the epilogue? All right, maybe. I don't know. I'll have to think about that. That's a good thing. Oh, any comment on the Trump thing? No, I mean, I'm glad he's found guilty. I don't think it makes any difference, like at all. About like Trump being like, it's a funny thing. Like Trump being found guilty is more of a statement about the justice system, right? Because all of us have so little faith in like the jury system that we kind of think that like 12 people can be crazy. They can definitely like find somebody that's not guilty. They can definitely find somebody that's guilty, not guilty, right? Like OJ got off. We all know that OJ murdered people, and so when Trump is found guilty, it's more that like everyone knew Trump was guilty and the justice system actually found him guilty. So the surprise and shock of this week was the justice system was accurate. Like that's it. Right? Like that's kind of the like it doesn't change anything. We all know that Trump did what he did. The question is whether he was going to get off or not, because we've seen it happen. Obviously, OJ got off, right? But I don't know if it affects anything. Like Trump can just he appeals. He can delay things on appeal. How likely are they to give him like jail time? You know, probably small amount. But even if they did give him jail time, he can just appeal and delay that a long time. So I don't know if there's like much to it. Like I understand this. It was great for clicks. It was great for the media to be like, what's happening at the trial? Trials are fun, right? Everybody loves like Americans love their trials. But it doesn't really change anything, does it? You know, it just changes our like opinion of the justice system. Like Yeah, that's about it, you know. Um, oh, I was from Illinois where putting governors in prison was fashion for the time. But that's the thing is, unfortunately, he can't be put in prison anytime soon, right? We still have to do this election. Like, if you were put in prison immediately and he couldn't campaign, I'd be like, oh, that's a big deal. Like let's say they give him 3 months of prison time, and he's got to sit out and not campaign. That's like a really significant thing. Um, uh, but you know, all right. Look, this is just like, when will the Clintons be found guilty so that they can show that justice goes both ways and is not biased? What crime? What crime do you want? I'll bite, Nicola. Like, what crime did the Clintons do? What crime did the Clintons do? You know, is it your conspiracy theory about the staffer that was murdered in DC? Is it that one? Is it that horrible one? The one that like has plagued that family for decades because like right-wing conspiracy theorists said this like staffer who was just like randomly killed like by like street crime in DC because it's DC. They're like, the right wing decided to make up the fact that like the Clintons had this staffer murdered, even though it makes no sense. You know, like what else? Like what do you want? Like what do you want? You know? Like what are the Clintons guilty of? Please tell me. Like please tell me what the Clintons should go to jail for. This is funny, yeah. He sexually assaulted, and this is Trump. He sexually assaulted and raped a woman. He's super racist. He lied about almost everything in his life. He committed fraud. Oh, but now he lied on some paperwork and I'm out. Yeah, it's true. It's not going to change anybody's opinion. Everybody. Well, I will say that like apparently according to polls, there's some independents that might be swayed by this sort of thing. And negatively, like obviously like being found guilty of something isn't going to be positive anyway. No one is saying I'm going to more likely vote for him. But the question is like, how much is it? But but like if you're saying like, okay, maybe if you're talking about like independence being like this like 5% and like it might 0.5% might make a decision on something, then that's significant, you know, because 0.5% is an election. Bills motivating the illegal bombing of Yugoslavia without the acceptance of the UN Council. I mean, you can talk about the morality of Yugoslavia, which I think specifically Kosovo I think that was a noble war, but personally, but if you're talking about Bill's illegal bombings of Yugoslavia without acceptance of UN Council, that's not a thing. Like that's not a thing. Like, you can talk about the morality of it, but there's no like legality to that of putting American presidents in jail for bombing things. We don't go to the UN Council. We don't go to the UN Council for approval on our bombings. Like you may say that that's more like morally we should or something, but we don't do that. That's not a thing. So you don't just like, I mean, every American president would be in jail if you're talking about that they can't do bombings without UN approval. Like what, like that would be every US president would be in jail. Like that's, you want all US presidents to be in jail? That's what you're saying. Did not go through the legal bureaucratic process to be considered a legal intervention. I'm sorry, but you don't know what you're talking about. So there's something called so according to the U.S. Constitution, only Congress can declare war. However, which war has not been declared by the United States since World War II, and since then we do something called as because the Constitution also allows the President of the United States to be Commander-in-Chief of the military, he can do military interventions at his discretion. However, after Vietnam, because people were like, oh, that was a non-declared war that went on way too long, maybe we should restrict the president, Congress passed something called the Armed Forces something Act. And that allows the president the ability to do a military action for up to 90 days before he then has to go get congressional approval for it. But the thing is, like Congress always approves of these things eventually. Now, he didn't. It's true that Clinton didn't get permission for. It's true that Clinton never got congressional permission for Bosnia or Yugoslavia, but I'm trying to remember some other ones. Like Reagan never got permission for Grenada. There's a whole bunch of others. Trump didn't get permission for like his Iran strikes or like what's going on in Syria or anything like that. So it's you're like, there's nothing, like Bill Clinton did nothing as president that one would be like, oh, let's put him in jail. That's just not how it works. In fact, Gulf War I was done without congressional approval. Gulf War II did get congressional approval for Gulf War II because he didn't have the same sort of like political leverage. But but no, there's nothing illegal here. Plus, you use the word Clintons as if like, are we talking about Bill or are we talking about Hillary? Like, what are you claiming? What are you claiming here? And it's true. All these things happened. Bombed weddings. Sure. Yes. Every single one. Like, it's like, but I don't like, this is the thing is like, one is arguing that the Clintons should be in should be in jail. Right. But it's like, love the content, but we're talking about how the rest of the world operates. Sure. But look, you can argue quite well that like America, like operates like in a unjust, immoral fashion. Sure. But I don't see how one can pick out a particular US president like Bill Clinton and say that he is more deserving of criticism than the presidents that came before or after. That's the only thing. And when you hear these things about, oh, he didn't get permission, again, this is a lot of like propaganda that you hear from people, like about throwing things. He's breaking all of the rules and he's a fascist. This is like every time, like, people do these things and people are like, the president's out of control. They've never done this before. They've always done it before. Like, it's just, I'm not defending the morality of the American system. I'm just saying that different, like somehow specifically singling out Bill Clinton is tough. It's really tough. Maybe Mama Direwolf was Benjen, and that's how he got through the wall. Benjen worked the Mama Direwolf and Benjen, yeah, maybe, I don't know. But how did Benjen have all this knowledge? Does Benjen have access to a werewood too? You can somehow make Benjen is more powerful. Benjen is secretly the most powerful telepath in the entire story. Yeah. Rob never had permission to call his banners. It's true. It's true. Noam Chomsky said something like, if Nuremberg rules applied to presidents after World War II, they'd hang. You know, of course, you know. It's Bush the lesser tortured innocent prisoners to war to death. I mean, he didn't personally do it, but yeah, that did happen during his tenure. I mean, we had Abu Ghraib and obviously our Guantanamo still exists. So yeah, you know. All right. Anyway, if a blowjob is just blowing someone's penis, is it actually sex? It's just breathing. So this was a funny thing. So when Bill Clinton said, because he made this big statement, I did not have sexual relations with that woman, and then they asked him, like, do you have a relationship with Monica Lewinsky? And he said no. And then later he's like, oh, it depends on the definition of what is. Did he mean is as in right now, or is, or has there ever been? And everyone made fun of that line, the definition of what is. And he could have said it better. He could have said, no, you asked me if I had a relationship with her, and that's no. You didn't ask me if I had one in the past. Like, you know, had he been more clear on that. He also said, like, sexual relations. If he had said I didn't have sex with that woman, I don't think that would have been a lie. But he said sexual relations with that woman, which sexual relations sounds broader than sex, you know. So he ends up kind of screwed himself with his own explanations on things. But again, like, the cover up is always worse than the crime. That's always the joke, right? I don't know. I mean, I have to hear like, there's some sexual harassment stories. I don't know if I'd go that far, but there's a sexual harassment story that kind of went away from the beginning of his campaign. Who was the woman again? Was it? But I wouldn't go. I don't know if I'd go that far. My ex is the Bay of Pigs. He screwed himself when he took advantage of an intern. You know what's very funny about that situation is that when you interview Monica Lewinsky does not think of herself as being taken advantage of. Like, she was like, I was a woman in my mid-20s. We were in a relationship. And in fact, she kind of, and there's many reasons for her to think that. If you're to ask me, yeah, I personally think he's abusing his job position. But yeah, you're in a position of power. You're alluring to people, and it's abusing it, and it's inappropriate. All of that I agree with. The problem is we use this term intern, and we tend to think intern is young. She wasn't that young. She was like 24. But when you ask her, like, still to this day, she's like, no, we were in a relationship. There was no abuse of power. When people say like there's an abuse of power, she says it kind of like lessens the situation, because like when he was denying that they were in a relationship and that they had feelings for each other, she felt that like that like stripped it what it was, like they were in a relationship. And like when all of a sudden it's this like power situation, then all of a sudden it's like it's nothing. She's nobody. She's just this object. And she never described herself that way, which is interesting. But it's also a different, she's from a different era. But I would probably agree with you that yes, that Bill Clinton was being inappropriate and taking advantage of a power situation. But strangely, Monica Lewinsky would disagree with that position. Yeah. Yeah. Jennifer Flowers was the sexual harassment situation. Yeah. Monica is quite eloquent. She's very, very intelligent woman. Yeah, Jennifer Flowers is the one that we'll never find out what happened because she got I think she got paid off or something. 24-year-old intern is like Ned and Robert being squires in their 20s. I mean, it all depends on there are definitely grad school interns and things like that. Grad school internships and things like that. Trying to think like how I had a grad school internship at how old was I? about 24, 25. Yeah. Bill Clinton, I don't know anyone who still likes him, especially post Epstein. There's you kind of separate a person's like political actions from like what they did in their personal life. I mean, I think it's exactly like you can take Jefferson, for example, and be like, okay, and Jefferson did things much worse than Bill Clinton ever did. And you kind of say, okay, like, do you say like, did everything that Jefferson did and everything you wrote and everything like, is that all like gone? Do you just say like, oh, I don't like Jefferson anymore? So no, I think there's a lot of things to admire about Bill Clinton, a lot of things that he did that were really great. So no, I don't think it's I mean, you're going to say like, oh, I can't admire pieces of somebody because the whole is, or another piece of it is bad. But no, I think Bill Clinton was a net good. I think he was a good president. But that's, Woodrow Wilson was a real jerk. I mean, he was a real racist. I think that's the big thing is when you look back at him, he was a real racist. A lot of people look at Woodrow Wilson's ideas and say, oh, he was for the creation of like the League of Nations and stuff and stuff like that. It's just a lot of people like can point to some things that were pretty interesting and progressive about him. He was actually a political scientist. He was the only president who was a political scientist. Everybody else is usually lawyers. So. Yeah, Trump has more connections to Epstein than Clinton. I think neither really had any. I mean, to be honest, neither. I mean, both of them were on planes at some time, went to parties. I don't think either one were deeply involved with him. I mean, this is a group of these are people that do a lot of handshakes and trips with randos, and I don't think if anything serious related to the Clintons or Trump, like was really related to like all the evil that Epstein was doing, it would have come out by now. I don't think either one of them is related to that. I mean, I think it's kind of funny when people like bring it up and you're just like, how can you bring like, because it's just, where's the evidence just because somebody like hung out with Epstein once. What do you think the truth is about the Clinton marriage? Is an arrangement? Why does Hillary stay with Bill? I don't think so. No, I don't think it's an arrangement. I think that when you're with someone for a very long time and you have a lot of very salient memories together, and you have a child together, and there's only one person in the world that really understands you, uh, and everything you've been through. Like, you learn to forgive. So, I mean, that's the long and short of it. I don't think there's an arrangement. You know, I mean, obviously, I don't think it's like a mad love affair like Jimmy Carter and Rosalind Carter, and I don't think or Michelle and Barack Obama. Like when you think of those people, like you think of like incredible affinity for each other. But I think that not to judge anybody, like anybody's relationships, like it's going to be, you know, they have very unique lives and they've been through a lot, and so and they have a kid, like a, that's those are some big things that keep people together, despite things occasionally going wrong in a relationship. Um, let's see. Have you seen Kingdom of TPOTA? The movie makes me want to throw a Burger King crown and scream how wonderful a day it is. Let's check this out. What is this? I don't know. What is am I oh, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I was like, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I have not seen Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. It I saw so I've seen all of the Planet of the Apes movies except for I think the new one that just came out and maybe the last one. I think even though like the new Planet of the Apes movies are all like by all measures very good movies, I for some reason I find them forgettable. And I don't know why. It, it I remember watching Rise of the Planet of the Apes and War of the Planet of the Apes and whatever, and thinking they were fun and entertaining at the time, but for some reason, like I don't like they don't stick with me as much as even the original series Planet of the Apes, which are by many measures bad movies. so, um, so it's weird. I don't know. Does anybody else think Planet of the Apes movies are kind of forgettable? I don't know. Maybe it's the color palette or something, or I'm just looking for something, or the fact that it's just like I feel like I know where the plot's going, and so it's not that exciting. You kind of know that like, oh well, the planets of the apes are gonna, people are eventually gonna get sick, and the apes are eventually gonna get all the guns. Been watching all the Planet of the Apes movies with my kiddos. They're so depressing though. Like each one is more and more well, I suppose they become less depressing, but man, it's funny because they did market Planet of the Apes 3 as a kids movie. And they were looking for like the kids audiences, and definitely like 3 and 5 are marketed as kids movies. Even though like 1, 2, and 4 are like like the things that you could definitely not. But it's so funny. I don't know. I haven't. I'm Dune Part 2 is on my list. It just came out on HBO, so I should watch it soon. Oh. You came back this late. I'm about to head to bed, man.
Oh, me too. I was actually going to ask you, like, should I? You want anything before bed? Can I bring you something before bed?
No,
No,
I'm good.
no,
Man.
you don't want like a water or nothing. I just wanna make sure.
Yeah, I should. I
Well,
should
I
really.
had to. I had to zone out when this fucking guy was talking about Battlestar Galactica. I could not. Like, I had to. I had to zone the fuck out. I had to. I couldn't. I couldn't. What'd he say? What'd he say? Non-spoiler. What'd he say
Oh, he went into a lot of detail on
about Battlestar?
Dragon Demands went into a lot of detail on Battlestar on why behind the scenes it fell apart. It was
Ah,
pretty interesting, but it was but I was like after hearing it, I was like, oh yeah, I guess that's why it falls apart. But it was very non-spoiler. He said essentially like um, all the women in the writers' room left, and so
oh,
considering that the main character, like the president, is a woman, you kind of needed these women writers, and that's one reason why things start sucking a bit. Um,
the way she gets over breast cancer, that's some bullshit. That was some
oh
bullshit.
yeah, I mean it's one of like the coolest plot points of it, the fact that she has breast cancer and the like that the other guy he wants to be in a relationship with her anyway, and she's president. Like that's one of the most fascinating aspects of her is that she has this ticking clock. Um,
Also surprised they kill off like like Billy. I was like, oh, I thought this was gonna be like some like filler episode. No, Billy dies in it. I'm like, oh,
yeah, they take a lot of interesting ideas and then kind of like later on, and then you're just like, no, never mind, that didn't happen. And you're like, oh, okay.
is there something you could tell me that's like non-spoiler?
Um, like there's certain relationships between like where you're like, how did that Cylon and that human have a child? And you're like, well, no,
Are
it's
you
like,
talking about? I got to the part where Katie Sackhoff, Starbug, she apparently has a kid,
mm,
and like that's a thing now. So keep in mind, I'm only in 3 episodes in season 3, and they're still on the planet. They're trying to gear up to get the fuck off.
yeah. So but it was all right. I'm trying to think of like any other reasons like why the show, like, yeah, the show fell apart because yeah,
What did he say? Because
he said
so
that they
I mean,
never, he said that it really was a mystery box. The writers didn't know where it was going. They were throwing, they were throwing any ideas that writers had at the wall and being like, sure, let's do an episode on that. And then not knowing what to do with it once like that idea was thrown in. Like, wouldn't it
hmm,
be cool if this person did this? Okay. And then it's an episode. And then it's like, okay, well now he also said that the show becomes more episodic. Um, as time goes on, which I don't remember, but that could be because I definitely remember having a feeling of like you're wasting time. We need to get to the end, and another episode would go by, and you're like the plot wasn't advanced. So
right. That's what I like. Yeah, like you had a little bit of that in season 2, the episode where the woman holds them hostage on the bar, and then Billy
yeah,
dies in that episode. Doesn't really advance the plot, kind of, but and then Starbuck accidentally shoots Lee, and then that's like a thing for half an episode.
hmm,
So, so. By the way, I got some good conversational pieces for Ice and Fire if you want to do something tomorrow.
okay.
Because I know, have you told the audience yet that for House of the Dragon season 2, you
Oh no, I haven't. No. Talk about it later.
talk about it later?
Yeah,
That's fine.
it's fine. It's
It's
fine.
fine. It's
It's
fine.
fine.
Yeah, no, I'm besides Gen V, Star Wars Acolyte, Tuesday. Tuesday it's out.
Tuesday. This Tuesday. Okay.
You
Okay.
want to do something on that?
Um. Sure. If I have time to watch it, yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Definitely give it a shot. I'll let you know if it's any good. I know we're waiting for the next Andor, so
Okay. All
mm.
right. Sounds good. Olivia Cook is going to start twerking in right after the trailer shot in House of the Dragon. That's what's going to happen, man.
What the fuck are you talking about? What?
This comment, man. Olivia Cook twerking.
Do British people even know how to twerk? Like I thought that was like
That's
exclusively.
true. You're right. Remember when
Sorry,
Lee gets
British.
fat? Oh yeah, he does get. Doesn't he get fat and then get thin again? Yeah, you're right.
Yes. Well, right now he's just fat for me, and fucking Adama calls him a fat fuck. the episode I'm on. So don't fucking tell me anything, orange colored sky. Don't say anything. Don't spoil it for me.
It's like, I mean, it's funny now that I'm thinking like how Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Like, man, Battlestar Galactica did it first. Oh man, Rosby Air is not Oliver Frey. It makes no sense for him to be Oliver Frey. Why would Rosby? Why would anyone at Rosby let in some random Frey rule their who's been there like a few weeks, like rule their castle? Like, no, like whoever the heir is and the ward, it has to be somebody that's been there for a long time to have gained trust to be able to take over the castle. Like, you can't just have like a random dude walk in and be like, I'm taking over, I'm the ward. Like, it's got to be somebody like who's been there a while, who like builds up like the trust of the castle to feel like he has the legitimacy to take over. You can't just have a ward take over. Like, oh well. Okay, guys. Thanks, everyone. I will talk to you guys soon.
You're getting off already?
It's 12:45. I've been in there 3.5 hours, man.
Oh, it's 12. That's right. You're ahead of time.
Okay.
My bad.
All right. Talk to you later, man.